on the 14th precisely in November 2018.
It needs to be stressed, though, that this debate, like you already know, is brought to you courtesy of the Nigeria Election Debate Group and the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, with a lot of support coming from a whole lot of partners. And so they're coming to you. And we're live here. It promises to be an interesting time as we'll be taking up some issues to discuss at this pre-debate session.
And what we are expecting is that you will see an epoch-making session, and we'll be seeing 5 good political parties and their presidential candidates with their families. If you look at the sitting position in the hall, you notice that we have the red chairs in front, and that red chairs represent the candidates and their family members, and also their political party leaders.
Well, perhaps it will also be nice to quickly take a look at some of these candidates, or all of them, and try to see what is it about them. I need to wear my glasses, Joma, to see this. Let's begin with the candidate of the ACPN, Obieze Kwesili. She was born in 1963 and is a chartered accountant by profession from Anambra State, married to a Redeemed Christian Church of God pastor, a co-founder of the Transparency International, and a former Minister of Education. She was Vice President of the World Bank's Africa Division and a nominee for 2018 Nobel Peace Prize for her work in the transparency and extractive sector. Her educational qualification, quickly, Ijoma, degree in international law and diplomacy from the University of Lagos, as well as Master of Public Administration degree from the Kennedy School of Government, Harvard University. And she trained with Deloitte and Touch and qualified as a chartered accountant.
Yes, we will be expecting also the candidates of the All Progressives Congress. Is the present president of Nigeria in office since 2015. He is a retired Major General in the Nigerian Army and previously served as the nation's head of state from 31st December 1983 to 27 August 1985, after taking power in a military coup d'etat. He unsuccessfully run for the office of the President of Nigeria in 2003, 2007, and 2011 general elections. But in December 2014, he emerged as the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress for the March 2015 general election. President Muhammadu Buhari won the election, defeating the incumbent president, Goodluck Jonathan.
Well, let's look at the candidate for the ANN, that is ANN, Fela Duro Toye. His full name is Adeto Kumbo Olufela Duro Toye, who was born in Ibadan on the 12th of May, 1971, is a politician, business consultant, and leadership expert, and a motivational speaker. Fela is the president of the Gemstone Nation Builders Foundation, a non-profit and non-government organization targeting training youth towards transformational leadership. His educational qualification, he was at the University of Ife, and then he was, of course, before then, Moremi High School between 81 and 86. Then he proceeded to earn a bachelor's science degree in computer science with economics, as well as a master's degree in business administration at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. He's an alumnus of the John F. Kennedy School of Government and the Executive Education Program from Harvard.
Ibrahim will go straight to the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, the person of Atiku Abubakar, born 25 November 1946. Is a Nigerian politician and a business tycoon. He served as the 11th Vice President of Nigeria from 1999 to 2007 under the presidency of Olusegun Obasanjo. He's a member of the People's Democratic Party, and in 1988 he was elected governor of Adamawa State. Whilst the governor-elect, he was selected by the presidential candidate Olusegun Obasanjo as his running mate. The duo went on to win elections in February 1999, and Abubakar was sworn in as Nigeria's second democratically elected vice president on 29 May 1999. Abubakar is a co-founder of Intel's, an oil-serving business and extensive operations in Nigeria and abroad. He is also the founder of Adama Beverages Limited and the American University of Nigeria, AUN, both in Yola, Adamawa State.
Well, the candidate for the YPP, Mr. Kingsley Moghalu, also have an equally impressive resume here. He is a Nigerian political economist, a lawyer, and former United Nations official, and professor in international business and public policy from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. Kingsley is the founder of Sagato Strategies LLC and a senior advisor to the official Monetary and Financial Institutions Forum. Moghalu worked with Central Bank Journal as contributory editor, and in 2016, Moghalu founded the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. Moghalu served as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria from 2009 to 2014, and as Deputy Governor for Financial Stability, led the implementation of far-reaching reforms in Nigeria's banking sector. Now, basically, these are
the 5 candidates that we're expecting to be on the debate as participants tonight, and it promises to be a very interesting session. Nigerians will be held spellbound. I know very well that they will when they start discussing issues.
Especially when you look at the issues that concerns Nigerians at the moment. Issues of security, issues of economy, issues of corruption, they are topmost. And we are actually going to be looking at that. And we have guests who might probably weigh in once in a while when we discuss this. But most importantly, we have with us Taiwo Kola Ogulade, who is also standing by. Kola, good to have you with us here on the pre-debate session.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
What is happening? What are Nigerians looking out for as far as these issues are concerned? You've been going on Google, you've been doing some research. Tell us, what is happening there?
Well, if there's anything that we've seen based on searches emerging in Nigeria in the last 6 months and up to the last 7 days, it's very clear that issues are very important to Nigerians. And Nigerians seem to be asking a number of questions, some relating to education, some relating to security, some relating to infrastructure, employment, minimum wage is also part of it. And Nigerians seem to be asking the candidates, what are your plans for us? So if you take a look at the top 10 issues-related questions that Nigerians are asking relating to these elections, you would see university, school, examination, and teacher at the top 4. It tells you that education is extremely important. And then there's also police, hospital, tells you that security and healthcare is also important as well. If we take a look at who are the top searched for candidates, I mean the most popular candidates that Nigerians are looking for, in the last 7 days we've seen the emergence of the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar emerging as the top most searched Nigerian, followed by the current President Muhammadu Buhari, and then Fela Durotoye, and then the others following in that list. Back to you, Ibrahim.
Well, Tao, interestingly, Ijoma, he is talking about education, especially at a time when university lecturers are back home. These issues are supposed to be discussed. This is what we expect to get to hear from these candidates when they come on stage to talk about how they intend to solve this problem. Oftentimes, what we see are, permit me to use the word bogus, if you don't mind, about how we're going to tackle this. But the finer details of exactly what route to take to achieve this is probably missing.
Yes, Ibrahim, if you look at what we've been seeing in Nigeria for, let me say, since the Independent National Electoral Commission lifted the ban on campaigns, you will notice that some of them have actually come out to launch their blueprint, where you have some of these things mentioned in their blueprint, that these are the things they will do when it comes to education, the economy, and also the issue of security and corruption. But I have also noticed that from all the campaigns, most of the political parties been holding, there seems to be too much of attack on personalities instead of them to come out and tell Nigerians these are the things we will do for you when you vote us into power. So hopefully after this debate, we are hoping that Nigerians will pick 1 or 2 things out of the debate to say, yes, this candidate I will put my fingerprints for, because I know he has a very good plan for me, as either as a student, or as a parent, or as a Nigerian who is jobless.
That also brings to fore a question that has been discussed before, where candidates perhaps should sit in round halls, town hall meetings, where citizens will be able to ask directly Mr. A, you want to do A, B, C for us. How do you intend to go about it? We see that missing also at this campaign. And the attacks we have seen so far completely negates the peace pact that these parties have signed. We just hope that going forward, perhaps we will not be seeing any of those anymore, so that we can make progress in tandem with the desire to have a peaceful and credible election.
Ibrahim, I think we should just bring in our guest. We have right here with us in the pre-debate session, we have Samson Itodo, who is the Executive Director, IAGA Africa. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Always a delight to be here.
We just spoke with Tayo a while ago, and he, from his research, education, infrastructure were some of the key issues that Nigerians have been looking at. Does it come to you as a surprise?
Well, it doesn't come to me as a surprise because if you look at the voter registration statistics, over 51% are registered voters, young people who are between 18 and 35. We also have a situation where over 26, 28% of registered voters are students. And so it's no surprise that education is a topical issue. Of course, the bane of our underdevelopment is education. We've got lots of students who are at home now as a result of the strike action. We've got serious issues relating to funding for education. If you look at even the unemployment rate, which is increasing, it's also driven from the fact that we've got an education system that is not building the human capital that we need for the labor market. And so I'm not really surprised that education is a topical issue.
His research also shows that certain candidates, 10 of them actually have been most searched for on the net. Do you think Nigerians are really asking the question they should ask about these candidates?
Nigerians are asking the question, and this debate provides an opportunity for Nigerians to interrogate some of the proposals and policies that the candidates do have. We must acknowledge that the fact that there's so much interest and attention on the part of citizens engaging candidates, asking them stuff about their campaigns, clearly tells you that this is a shift. In 2015, we weren't having this kind of conversation around policy-related issues. In 2011, we didn't. So increasingly, we're seeing citizens getting really interested, and beyond presidential debates. If you look at, we've got governorship debates, we've got even debates for legislative elections. I think that's where Nigeria needs to really go to, because democracy must deliver development to the people, and citizens do have a right to ask those fundamental questions.
Okay, now let's take a look at the analysis we just heard now from the Google angle. And if you look at that, you notice that Nigerians are mostly keen about education, because the number of those who have their PVC are mostly the younger ones. The percentage is higher. Now, these 5 candidates that we're having today, and let's just compare with their campaigns, have they really been able to answer some of the questions when it comes to education that Nigerians are clamoring for?
I think I've followed the campaigns of some of the candidates, and I think that, again, that's the value of this presidential debate, affording citizens the opportunity to hear them again, talk to Nigerians and across the world about what's their standpoint and their policy issues about education. One of the things Nigerians will want to see is, if you're going to increase budgetary allocation for education or funding for education, how are you going to do that? Where are you going to get the money to actually fund education? If you're talking about policy review or curriculum review, what are you reviewing for? What are the contents or what innovations are you going to bring into our education system that builds the human capital and students who are in schools? If you're going to be investing in research, how are you going to do that? Where is this resource? Who is going to be accessible to research grants? They're critical issues, and when we look at education, we need to look at education both from formal and informal education. One of the things I'll be very, very interested in is what is the plans and the programs that these candidates have for both formal and informal education.
Well, Samson, truly, we're going to, if we have the time, we'll be able to compare. I don't know if you've been able to see their manifestos, these parties. We'll try to do a quick comparison and see how they intend to approach these issues. But then Tayo has been nodding vigorously from the other side. I don't know what it is you want to share. Tayo, you've been listening in. What's new?
Okay, Ibrahim, it's quite instructive about you guys talking about questions, because yes, Nigerians have been asking questions, and like you rightly noted, the questions we're seeing people ask on Google this time are much better and much in-depth than we got in 2015. So I'll take a look at just a few of the questions being asked to some of the candidates, and we can then begin to have a conversation around that. So for instance, for Atiku Abubakar, former vice president, one of the questions he's been asked, which is quite interesting, particularly if you look at what's been happening in the last couple of days, is Atiku Abubakar in the US. And you guys all know the entire story about the US and Atiku Abubakar, so that's quite interesting. When it comes to the president, Muhammadu Buhari, you would see Nigerians are interested in one question: will President Muhammadu Buhari attend this debate? I'm waiting to see that, and everyone else, I think, is staying glued to their TV to see that happen as well. For Fela Durotoye, you would see Nigerians are interested in asking him, which is quite interesting, which party is he in? I mean, how do we vote for him when we don't know the party that he's in? So today, all the candidates do have an opportunity to sell their mandates to the people who are listening. It's really a time for them to let people know who they are. And one last person you would find is Kingsley Moghalu. You'll find a question people are asking is, who is his vice presidential candidate? Back to you, Ibrahim.
Of course, in the next 10 minutes, we'll maybe join in the debate proper, but I would like to let you know that the hall is already filled up with so many people here. Do we have the candidates, any of them around?
Well, not at the moment. I mean, if they are, they're probably somewhere in the holding room, and they'll be joining us at a particular time, maybe as organized by those who are putting this together. But it's also important to stress here for the first time, like you did mention earlier, the families of the candidates have the opportunity to sit in a pride of place, actually, right in front there on the red chairs, so they can be part of this. Kingsley, I was asking, Samson, I beg your pardon, I was asking you earlier on about comparison of what these candidates have been able to tell Nigerians so far. They all have beautiful plans on paper, how they intend to tackle, for instance, insecurity in the country. Have you gone through some of them? And if you have, what do you think?
No, I would say I've not gone through some of the policy or campaign documents of the candidates. But what permeates most of the campaign policies of different parties, and I don't want to mention, deals with the question around addressing the insecurity problem in the northeastern part of the country. But I think that whilst it's important to focus on the northeastern part of the country, we must appreciate the fact that we're a country that is in conflict at the moment, and there are pockets of insecurity across different parts of the country. If you look at the farmer herders crisis, if you look at communal clashes across different parts of the north central part of Nigeria, the northwestern part of Nigeria, including the south part of Nigeria, those are critical issues. And how these candidates are going to first ensure national unity and integration is very, very key, because it's central to security. How they're going to invest in taking people out of poverty is very, very fundamental to this debate. And the reasons why a lot of people are going to be voting is because they are going to vote for people who will take them, who will lift them out of poverty. So when you look at insecurity, you need to look at insecurity from a broad perspective. It goes beyond the hard and the soft approach towards tackling insecurity. It's good to invest in procuring arms, as lofty as that is, but we need to go back and look at what are the fundamental causes or root causes of insecurity. And there are issues relating to lack of understanding or appreciation of the values of mutual coexistence. There are issues relating to even poverty or unemployment. You also have leaders that do not appreciate the fact that we are such a diverse country, and it is very, very important not to exclude. In as much as inequality is deeply entrenched in our system, you will continue to see these manifestations of insecurity as well as violence across the country.
Yes, Ibrahim, it would be a very good point if we ask him the essence of this debate. We've observed, we've had debates in Nigeria before now. Do you think this debate will also help Nigerians to know who the candidates actually are when you talk about their issues and things where they have the strength in? Do you think the debate will go a long way to do that?
You know, simplistically, when you talk about campaigns and elections, it's like marketing a product. And in marketing a product, you want someone to actually buy that product. You need to unravel, you need to unpack, you need to market yourself well if you want the votes from the people. What we are doing today is an acknowledgement of the fact that the voters count. Because you can't ask people to vote for you if you don't tell them what you're going to do for them. And so this is a very, very unique opportunity for the candidates to market themselves, tell us about their policies and their programs, and for we as voters, we need to assess, does this candidate have the competence, a firm understanding, because what public leadership entails is how do you harness the potentials within your own country, driven by a long-term and a short-term vision to address some of the challenges that are dominant in a particular society. So we would like to see, and they demonstrate competence and capacity in their response to some of the questions, as well as their knowledge of some of the issues. Gone are those days. And I say this, if Nigeria must advance, we need leaders who are responsive, we need leaders who understand the issues, and we need leaders who can provide response to some of the problems. Why are we voting for people if they don't understand the problems that we have? Because leadership is about solving problems. So let them come, tell us what are these problems and how they are going to solve these problems.
It was a conversation I was having yesterday backstage when I was talking to a few friends, and I was wondering if at this level of Nigeria's democratic development, do you think this debate will sway voters, for instance, where you have issues of religion, issues of ethnicity coming to play? Is this enough, perhaps, to sway voters, you think? Some people will tell you, we've seen in other African countries where people who have won elections have not participated in debate. And we're evolving, our democracy is evolving. Where we are today is not where we were in 2011. It's not where we were in 2015. I think that it is absolute disregard for voters. It's absolutely disregard for people if candidates don't utilize platforms of this nature to debate. And that is why I completely stand for a legislation that compels people who want to seek votes from people to debate. They have to come and debate on issues that they represent. Because just look at the nature of campaigns. How do citizens actually have opportunity to engage during campaign rallies? No, they don't. We only hear these promises, but those who are participants in those campaign rallies don't have the opportunity to ask those questions. Let's see if we can squeeze in a few more questions because our time is fast. I need to ask you this question, and I'm probably playing into your hand because that's your area. From Taiwo's research, one thing that became recurrent in all these searches is the ages of this candidate. Do you think that's also an important factor? Well, I think it's for the voters to actually decide whether age is of paramount interest to them. But you cannot have a demographic majority consistently ruled by a political minority. It's a misnomer, and that needs to change. And the point I am making is, if you've got 50% of your registered voters as young people, it is very, very important that we got a political system that needs to rejig itself and ensure that this population is represented. INEC has just released the list of candidates. And I tell you, the youth candidacy for House of Reps is about 27%. For Senate, it's about 13%. And when you do your analysis, you will see that for the beneficiaries of the Not Too Young to Run bill, there's about 5%. So over 222 candidates presented by parties fall on our under 30s, because the Not Too Young to Run Act says from 25 to 30. But what is even more interesting is you've got the major parties not fielding sufficient or a lot of youth candidates because of the very toxic nature we manage our party primaries, and that needs to change.
All right, we'd like to let you know that 5 candidates will be on the soapbox this very evening. And let me just try and see if I can mention most of them. And we have the candidates of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, the candidates of the Alliance for New Nigeria, ANN, the candidates of the All Progressives Congress, APC, the candidates of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the candidates of the Young Progressive Party, YPP. Ibrahim.
Yeah, well, when they take the stage, we'll be getting to hear what they have to offer to Nigerians here. And then thank you for coming on the program and weighing in on this. I'd like to also let our viewers know that at the end of this debate, we're going to be here to perhaps bring up those key issues, those talking points, and be discussing them. That's when the program ends. We shall be here. But for the time being, perhaps as you prepare to leave, I'm going to go back to that issue of campaign, which Ijoma has expressed displeasure about the way it's going. And I'm sure every well-meaning Nigerian is probably concerned the way it's going. What should we do at this point? What should we be telling those who are campaigning?
I think it's to urge them to be very patriotic in their campaigns, but more importantly is focus on the issues. Nigerians are interested in what you've got to offer. You don't deserve our vote if you don't have understanding of the issues, because why we're voting people is to come and solve problems. We've got lots of problems in our country today, and what we want is leaders. So come and tell us what you're going to do with the power that we're going to give you to hold in trust for us. And it's very, very important. So focus on the issues. More importantly, we want to see candidates actually rise above self. We want to see them rise above those fault lines that we have within our polity and promote national unity. Yes, our attitude towards politics in Nigeria is a do-or-die affair. This game is not a do-or-die affair. If people don't want you to hold power in trust for them, they've got the right to do so. So we've got a political class that needs to understand that they need to play this game by the rules. I think it is very, very important. But more importantly is to urge the voters that this debate is an anti-vote buying or vote selling strategy. Do not sell your vote. This is an opportunity for you to have a better appreciation of what the parties and the candidates stand for. So please, critically listen to them. Decipher who qualifies to have your vote. It's not easy to vote in Nigeria. You're going to stand on queues under the sun in a couple of days. So it is not easy. So your vote is too important. Therefore, make your vote count by voting for people who have the competence, who have the character, and who have the capacity to address our leadership problems.
Yes, Ibrahim, you would like to tell him thank you for being a part
of yes, absolutely. It's always wonderful to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
But we also let you know that it is time for us to join the Nigeria Presidential Debate 2019, and the people are already seated in the hall. We'll just go straight to join them, and let's listen to the 5 candidates. We'll be back after the debate.
That's right, we'll be back. Don't go anywhere.
An epic match is about to begin, and the anticipation is reaching a fever pitch from Nigeria's capital city, Abuja.
Fundamental issues: security, economy, and fighting corruption.
I am running in politics because Nigeria is in a dire strait.
The focus of my government will be human capital development and innovation. I am always going to tell you to vote for the country of your dreams.
If we join with this government, we will end up in a dictatorship.
And when this is over, the stake for the country's highest office will be higher. This is the Nedg-born coverage of the 2019 presidential debate. Tonight, voters are presented with the opportunity to compare these candidates as they go head-to-head. The stage is set, and the candidates are here. If you thought it would be easy, think again. Brace up, everyone. We are reaching you live from Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nedg-born presidential debate 2019. Moderating, Mark Shegun Edo.
to the Congress Hall of the Transport Hilton Hotel here in our nation's capital of Abuja for the 2019 presidential debate organized by the NEDG, the Nigerian Election Debate Group, and BON, the broadcasting organizations of Nigeria. I am your moderator, Mark Shegun Edo, and the debate is live on all BON member channels here in Nigeria and across the globe, as well as on YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms. The hashtag is 2019 Debate. Now tonight, you'll witness history as the candidates vie to convince you that they deserve your vote to be the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Over the next 2.5 hours, they'll give us their solutions to the major challenges facing Nigeria, and I'll ask them the tough questions we all want answered. What we need to hear from them is not a long list of Nigeria's symptoms. We want to hear solutions that can move our great country forward. Now, before I bring out our candidates, please give a warm welcome to the Executive Secretary of the NEDG, Mr. Eddie Emesiri.
Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to epoch-making event 2019. This is another story in the making of our democratic journey and political life. Election, they say, is a festival of democracy. But beyond the fanfare of the noise and all the dances on the campaign fields, this is the reality of the genuine and the real needs of the average Nigerian. At the campaign grounds, music and rhetorics had they allowed the truth to be told. This is the reason why this kind of platform is very crucial. An avenue where the real issues are brought to bear, put on the table. The temperature of the nation is being gauged, while the capacity of those who are seeking the highest office in this land are being tested. Tonight, NEDG and BON has made this happen through the assistance and support of some of our partners. Nigerians, wherever you are watching this event, please pay attention to those who have capacity, because that knowledge will help you to make a decision in about 2 or 3 weeks. There's no more sitting on the fence. Brace up and be counted. The stage is set. The future of Nigeria is now. Welcome again to the 2019 presidential debate. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And thank you, Eddie Emesiri, the Secretary of the NEDG. Now, the political parties may agree on many issues, they may disagree on many issues, but there is one thing that we can all agree on. We all hope for a safe and peaceful election next month that are calm, fair, and orderly. Now, our next speaker is working tirelessly to help us achieve that. Please welcome the convener of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, human rights champion, Mr. Clement Nwankwo.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we're very delighted to be involved and associated with this debate. Debates are an important opportunity for citizens to gauge the candidates and make a decision as to be able to cast their votes. Now, we need an atmosphere that citizens can be able to cast their votes. And on behalf of the Situation Room, I would say welcome. On behalf of Situation Room, I would also like to say that we have outlined thresholds that we expect that this election will fulfill in order to be described as credible. Those thresholds include the responsibility of all candidates in this election to respect the rules of the elections. It includes the responsibility of state institutions to respect the right of candidates to campaign. It includes the responsibility of state institutions to not hinder the activities of political parties and candidates in this election. A free and fair atmosphere for campaigns, a free and fair atmosphere for participation of citizens is very critical for these elections. And we urge all stakeholders, all parties to respect the rules of the game, to eschew violence, and for institutions of state to respect the rights of candidates and political parties to campaign. Much more importantly, we are looking towards the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure that it prepares to conduct a credible election for Nigeria. Citizens are yearning to vote. They want to see their votes count. They want to see their votes counted, and they want to see this reflected in a true and genuine report on the elections. Thank you so very much and welcome.
Thank you, Clement Wankwo. Good words that we should all heed. Now, there are almost 200 million of us Nigerians, so I guess when we clap our hands, we should be making the loudest noise in the world, right? So please give a warm welcome as I bring in the candidates to the stage in alphabetical order. She is a two-time minister, a former World Bank vice president, and co-founder of the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Transparency International, and the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, the presidential candidates for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, Obi Ezekwesili. Next, taking his podium is the business consultant, leadership expert, motivational speaker, and presidential candidate for the Alliance for New Nigeria Party, Fela Duratoye. Ladies and gentlemen, our next candidate has been the Vice President of Nigeria. Now he's a businessman. Ah, very interesting. This is live TV, so anything can happen on live TV. Moving on. Your final candidate is a former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations and a former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now he's the flag bearer of the Young Progressives Party, Kingsley Moghalu. Now, candidates, moving on, if you could move up, please. Before we begin the debate, I would like to invite all the candidates. You're standing behind podiums. I'd like to invite you to step forward in front of me, if you may, in the sequence in which you are standing. Come together, please. And I would like to invite everyone in the hall to please stand for the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, performed by one of the country's biggest stars in music, Timi Dakolo, ladies and gentlemen.
Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call, obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind,
If I could ask you to please take your podiums now. Thank you, Timmy Dakolo, for that wonderful rendition of our national anthem. Now, we have five 30-minute segments on topics that matter most to you, the voter, and we'll start with the suitability of the candidates, and then for the highest office in the land, of course, and then we'll move on to the economy, security, education, and health, and then we'll end with 30 minutes on the rule of law, human rights, and corruption. So in that order. Now, my dear candidates, you have agreed to a set of rules. You'll each be given 2 minutes to answer a question or make your intervention, except for your opening statement. We're generous. We're going to give you 3 minutes for that. If you are directly referenced in any shape or form by a fellow candidate, you do have the right to reply, a rebuttal, for 1 minute, if time permits, if we have time in the program. Now, I am a firm but fair traffic warden, so I will stop you. I have a clock over there if you exceed your allotted time so that we can stay on schedule. Is that okay? Now, let's begin the first segment of the 2019 presidential debate, where we hear your opening statements, and this is where we explore your suitability for the office of presidency. And I will start now with the candidate on my left from the Young Progressives Party. Sir, you have 3 minutes to tell us why you should be president.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. On the 29th of May, 2019, I will be sworn in as the 8th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. With the support and the votes of the Nigerian people. That will happen because I am putting myself forward to serve you, Nigeria and Nigerians. It is time for a different kind of leadership. My government will have a kind of approach to Nigeria's problems that we've never seen before in this country. And that is a foundational approach that addresses the root causes of our challenges. The first of which is, are we a nation, really? Or are we just a country? And as I would argue, a broken one. And so we will come at this problem by first of all defining the foundational philosophy of the Nigerian state, establishing a national ambition around which all of us can unite, that rises above the things that divide us. We will restructure this country constitutionally so that it can actually fulfill its potential. We will establish effective national security. We will work with women as equal partners. They will not just be in the kitchen or the other room, but they will have a seat at the table. We will work with our young people, the youth of this country, as leaders of today, not tomorrow. We will break the backbone of poverty in this country by establishing education and literacy for all citizens of this country, giving them access. We will create skills for all our young men and women, establishing skills training centers in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. And we will provide access to finance. We will restore Nigeria's standing in the world. Nigeria's place in the world has fallen. We will once again, be strong at home, powerful abroad. We will accomplish all this working together under my leadership as president, because I have been prepared for the office of the president. Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria for 5 years, leading far-reaching reforms in the financial system that have touched the lives of millions of Nigerians, including the bank verification number, saving our banks. 17 years as a United Nations official, and as a professor in one of the world's most prestigious universities of international business and economic policy. I am ready, and it is time.
Thank you very much, the candidate for the Young Progressives Party, the YPP. Now I'll turn to Fela Durotoye, the candidate flag bearer for the ANN, the Alliance for New Nigeria. To many voters watching, you are a relative newcomer. But indeed, yourself, you said that you're not a politician. You've described yourself as, quote, a nation builder. But you aspire to the highest political office in the land. Why should Nigerians put their faith in you and anoint you President Durotoye?
Well, thank you, Mark, and a very good evening to you all. My name is Fela Durotoye. I am a business management consultant, a leadership expert, and a nation builder. And that's really at the core of my heart. Many times when people ask me, who is a nation builder? I say, well, it's really as simple as A, B, C, D. Someone who accepts responsibility for the well-being of his nation, not just his own personal well-being. Somebody who believes in the greatness and the potential of not just the nation, but the people to be able to actualize that greatness. But then C, somebody who commits. Committed their time, their talents, their gifts, their wealth, their resources. And lastly, somebody who doggedly does everything that is possible to deliver the future of that nation. And when I say the future, I mean a time zone that is yet to come. No, that's not what I mean. I mean everything a nation can be but has not yet become. Everything a nation can do but has not yet done. Everything a nation can have but has not yet possessed. Nigeria undoubtedly is one of the most blessed nations on earth. When you think about the human resources, when you think of the natural resources and the mineral resources, the question is, why haven't we fulfilled our nation's potential? Well, because we have been ruled and not led for the last 50-odd years. And because rulers suppress the potential of others, whereas leaders support those people to release their potentials. I am a leadership expert. I have served the people of Nigeria. I have helped businesses for the last 27 years of my career. I currently mentor over 10,000 business leaders and 20,000 business professionals on the Fela Durotoye Leadership Network. I have dedicated my life to the service of the people of Nigeria. So why am I running for the office? Because we have been failed in leadership and in governance. Those whom we have accepted to go into governance and handle the business of governance are people we probably would not have hired ourselves. Tonight, I know you would hear many of the things that people have done, the former this and the former that. Well, I do not come to you with any former titles. I only come to you with the hope of the future of this nation. Because Nigerians have lost hope. Today, you can see that in drug addiction, suicide rates, and in migration. I will restore that hope in Nigerians, and together we will build a new Nigeria where there is jobs and opportunities for all, where businesses succeed, and the son of a nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody, because it will be a nation that works for all. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our final candidate, and that is someone who will be well recognized in the room, Obi Ezekwesili of the ACPN, the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Now, madam, it surprised many of us when you threw your hat in the ring and said, I want to be president. What compelled you to run, and why should Nigerians give you their vote?
Good evening, fellow Nigerians. My name is Obi Ezekwesili, and I'm the presidential candidate of the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Nigeria, our country, is in dire straits. Nigeria needs to be rescued urgently. The trouble with our country was identified by Chinua Achebe, one of the illustrious sons of this country, who is now late, when he said that the problem with Nigeria is simply and squarely the failure of leadership. What we see in our country is massive failure of leadership. Our children are failed. Some 44% of our children are stunted because they are malnourished. It leaves a lasting effect on them. Our young ones are hopeless in the midst of all of us because annually, some 2 to 3 million of them would graduate from school, high school, and tertiary education and find no jobs. Our women are being failed. Some 60% of them are poor. Whether it's the north or the south or the east or west of Nigeria, there is massive poverty. We have no business being the world capital of poverty. It is urgent for us to change the direction of our country. Because it is failure of leadership, it means that our politics is culpable. Our politics has become politics by the politicians, for the politicians, and of the politicians. Many of you know me not to be a politician. However, I have been a technocrat that understood the political context of this country. And it's very clear that except we disrupted the pattern of politics that we have, we will continue to fail, and we must no longer fail our people. That is why I am running for office. I bring with me the track record of being able to fix problems. As a technocrat in government, I had many assignments that I had to fulfill. I served the Nigerian people. In serving the Nigerian people, I was conscious of the fact that it is exactly the opportunities that Nigeria gave me that made me the child of a poor public servant and an enterprising mother to become the person that I have become. I have the capacity, the competency, and the character to take on this new direction of leadership that our country deserves.
I think we're going to a break now in a moment, so I would like to say thank you for those opening salvos. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about the economy. That's what everyone wants to know about on the 2019 presidential debates.
Life evolves. You should too. 3G is great. 4G is better. Buy an Airtel SIM to enjoy double data on Nigeria's widest 4G network. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Everybody make we testify, yo. Testify, yo. Brother, sister, make we testify. I testify. Oh, our matter, nine be our matter. Testify, yo. Better days ahead in Delta State. I testify. Oh, yeah, make we vote to Goa. Vote the road, the master. Job creation matter. For a stronger Delta. Everybody make we testify, yo. Testify, yo. Brother, sister, make we testify. I testify. I testify.
Vote Okowa. Vote for a stronger Delta.
PDP!
This message is brought to you by Delta State PDP Campaign Organization.
Are you giving up already about getting admitted into a reputable university this year? Don't be. Take advantage of the 2018-2019 supplementary admissions into Anchor University, Lagos. Your journey to prominence just gets a boost. At Anchor University, you will experience a tertiary education with a global touch designed to make you the best. Our world-class facilities are manned by proven and well-trained workforce committed to sound training and godly lifestyles. Choose from any of our courses in arts, social sciences, sciences and science education. Be a part of a world-class education. Don't miss out. For registration and inquiries, please visit www.aul.edu.ng or call 0906 122 3042 0905 050 0021. Anchor University. Character, competence, courage.
My name is Jamiu Abiola. I'm the son of the late Moshood Abiola. For so long, more than 26 years ago, my father won an election. He was arrested. Then later on, he was assassinated. And my mother too, Alaja Kudrat Abiola, she was assassinated as well. We were so depressed, especially my siblings. We went through emotional, psychological trauma, and we felt that the next government would have honored my father. But from one president to another, there was no such thing. President Muhammad Buhari last year did not only honor my father, he actually named the day of his victory, June 12th, as Democracy Day, which was a very, very, very wonderful gift to us, and it went a long way in psychological healing. What struck my interest the most was that most of what my father would have done if he had become president, people-oriented programs for the masses and the poor, General Buhari is doing it.
Now, welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. I have to inform the audience that there was some jeering to my right earlier in our first segment. So I would ask the audience, please first switch off your phones and please don't shout, jeer or cheer. We want to hear from the candidates. So the laughing, clapping and cheering in the hall, please let's keep that to a minimum. That's a standing rule. We'll make that a standing rule. I also want to say that we were expecting the candidates from the APC and the PDP, but as you can see, they're not here. They were here, at least Atiku from the Atiku Abubakar from the PDP did turn up at the debate. He was in the hall. At the last second, he decided not to appear. So you shouldn't worry about what you can't control. We will continue as is. And we're going to continue with arguably the most important subject to many of us out there as we cast our vote. When you ask voters what matters most to them, you're likely to hear them say the economy, jobs, the cost of living, and ensuring a secure financial future for themselves and for their families. Now, it's no secret that Nigeria's economy continues to face turbulent times. We've just exited from one of the worst recessions in modern history. GDP growth is at a tepid 1.8%. And the latest data in December of last year showed inflation at a whopping 11.4%. We have to sustainably strengthen the economy, boost manufacturing, build infrastructure, modernize farming, and most of all, create jobs. Now, the current government would say, if they were here, that they are on the path to doing that with bold plans and policies. Now, candidates, here is your chance to try to convince us that you can do a better job than them. Now, I'll ask a 2 minutes for a 2-minute intervention in this case. The clock is standing by. And I will begin, first of all, with the candidate from the YPP, Professor Kingsley Moghalu. Now, the economy. This is the single most important thing to many voters as they think, where do I put my mark? Nobody will, as you'll see from what I said, nobody will say that things are rosy. We've heard a lot of promises of what people can do, And we've spoken a lot about many of the problems. We don't really need to hear about what's wrong. I've just said it. We need to hear how we're going to get ourselves out of that. You have a very clear plan. Can you give it to me in 2 minutes, rapidly, colloquially, so that everybody can understand it? Your time starts now.
Thank you. Fellow Nigerians, let's first understand that we cannot fix the economy if we don't fix our politics. Our economy can never grow for as long as we are led by the incompetent, visionless, and recycled and arrogant old politicians that have run this country's economy into the ground and are seeking another 4 years of poverty for us. So let's first understand that the path to fixing Nigeria's economy depends on who becomes president in 2019. Therefore, the first order of business is to elect a president who understands how to manage the economy. My government will fix the economy by taking the approach that I will just spell out very quickly. The problem that we need to solve is that we don't have an economic philosophy. We will have to decide whether we're a capitalist country or a socialist country, and if we are, what type of capitalism we are practicing. So, my approach to the Nigerian economy is, first of all, to focus on reforming the educational system, ensure that our young people have the skills that can make them competitive in the 21st century, and the skills that can give them jobs or help them to set up their own jobs. Then we will give them access to finance, which my government will do through a 1 trillion naira venture capital fund, which will give equity capital, not loans that you have to repay, because loans carry interest rates in Nigeria that are too high, or you may not have the collateral to be able to access loans. So we will invest in new businesses that will create millions of jobs over the next 4 years. That's the approach we have. Skills, capital, literacy, that's what will fix Nigeria's economy and take it into industrialization.
Thank you very much, candidates from the Young Progressives Party there. If I have time, I'm coming back with a follow-up question on that, but I will now turn to your fellow candidate, Fela Durotoye. Now, let me ask you about diversifying the economy. This is not something that is new. I remember my father talking about it back in the day, some 30 years ago. Diversifying away from oil. Non-oil makes up less than 10% of Nigeria's export revenue. It's too low. What are your plans to build the non-oil sector in terms of exports and, I guess, in terms of tax receipts? And what are the 3 sectors? Tell us the 3 sectors that you would target in these new engines of growth.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark, and to the people of Nigeria listening. The 3 most important sectors that we need to focus on will be the sectors that help us not only to grow jobs, but to have great social impact in terms of growing our nation. So the 3 most important sectors are agriculture, housing construction, and road construction. If we fix agriculture, which currently, as we know today, 60% of Nigeria's labor force is currently employed in the agricultural sector. And yet, only 35% of our arable land is being used. We will drive aggressively land use for agriculture to 50%. And that will create for us an opportunity to be able to get under 30 million people altogether into the labor force. But that's not all. The infrastructure of this country is completely decayed. And that includes power, roads, and housing. Today, we have 108 million people that are homeless. Today, we have easily a power sector that is really crippling our businesses. So we will ensure that we fix power, we fix roads, and most importantly, we provide housing for our people. Like I said, collectively, this should be able to provide for us 30 million jobs in Nigeria. And I will be happy to continue to share with you exactly how in each of the segments we'll be able to do this. Because for agriculture, What we definitely need to do will be to make sure that we drive our commodities board so that farmers can once again be able to have an offtake when they do produce. Lastly,
I don't think you have a lastly. If I come back to you, you'll get your chance. Now, I have to move on to the candidate on the far right. That is the candidate for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, the ACPN. Madam, there was a sobering report recently. It said Nigeria now has the highest number of poor people in the world. It's also true that the number of poor people living in extreme poverty in Nigeria has actually fallen, though, in the last 5 years from, I think, 112 million to 90 million. But the figures are still not good. If you are elected as president, tell us, in the simplest and most specific terms, how many Nigerians will you lift out of poverty, and how are you going to do it?
Our plan is to lift at least 80 million Nigerians out of poverty. The way that we plan to do this is that when you look at the Nigerians who are poor, it is very clear that they are poor because they earn below 700 naira a day and live on it. What therefore needs to happen is that this majority of Nigerians, over 50% of them, would need to improve their productivity. When people have higher productivity, they earn more. When they earn more, they lift themselves out of poverty. What are the ways of enhancing their productivity? Take a typical member of the Farmers Club in Nigeria. They actually constitute 1/3 of our workforce, and 60% of them are women. When you give inputs to women, they outperform even their male counterparts by as much as 40% in output. That essentially means that women will be lifted out of poverty enormously. The structure of our economy is such that services constitute 60% of it. The services is not high-end services. It is low productivity services. And so our focus would be on removing the barriers that stand in the way of these operators in the services sector. That would include improvement in policies that target the people in those sectors. It would include removing regulatory barriers that stand in the way of formalization. It would include prioritizing the investments that give public utility for their use.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. I'm going to turn back to Professor Mogalo of the YPP. Now, one big concern is the cost of government, paying for government. Yeah, the amount of Nigeria's budget that goes on recurrent expenditure. That's things like salaries and overheads, compared to capital expenditure, like building infrastructure, I suppose. It's a mathematical equation that needs to change. How would you practically and significantly reduce government spending?
Thank you very much. We're going to do that, first of all, by going into a program of recruitment and training and skills in our security sector that will reabsorb a lot of people away from the normal public service, people who are still young, to the police force. We intend to recruit 1.5 million new policemen and women over 4 years. That's one. Number two, we're going to have to retrain and rationalize the federal public service. How do we do this? It's not by kicking people out into the streets or just sacking civil servants. No. It is by having a program that is very clear in terms of helping them to move into more productive engagements in the private sector and retraining those who remain in the civil service to become much more productive.
That sounds like it's going to take a long time.
No, it won't. No, it won't. Within 2 years, my government will bring the cost of recurrent expenditure down to 50%. What it requires is political will and the ability to do what needs to be done. That's what needs to be done. Our politicians have carried this expenditure because they want to be, quote unquote, popular. They don't want to do the right thing.
Okay, as you were speaking, I looked over to my right and I saw Dr. Obi, a look go across her face. I mean, do you think that you have a better plan for reducing the cost of government than what we just heard?
But you interrupted my time.
I think you only had 2 minutes, right? I think we came to 2 minutes. I apologize. I will keep that 38 seconds in my pocket and give it to you later.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Obi, please, let's see how do we cut down the government, the mammoth cost of government?
Well, I would be starting on a good place, because the famous Steve Orosaye report that looked into the rationalization of the bureaucracy has made very specific recommendations on the things to do. Some of the existing institutions and bureaucracies or agencies within our bureaucracy actually have no purpose that they serve. And so they have become conduits for bleeding the public treasury. When you deal with those, you're not dealing with a Nigerian who must be catered for. It is illegality that has taken hold, and so you deal with illegality by ending it. Number two is that if you looked at the productivity of our bureaucracy, it does matter that we should find the most competent and put them in leadership position. Today, that is distorted. Most of our bureaucracy ends up being warped in its arrangement. Productivity is not rewarded. It's the lack of it that gets recognized. We will switch that. In doing that, it becomes very clear and evident that any decision you're making on reducing the cost of governance is based on analysis, not merely wanting to get people out. The third thing is that the private sector must lead the economy. Many of the people who are in our public sector, if they found better opportunities in the private sector, they would take it. Most of the employment in our public sector was done by government as a way of pretending that jobs were being created. It's the private sector that creates sustainable jobs, and we will stay with that capacity by doing the right policies to encourage them.
Felado Otoye. No great nation really progresses without a robust tax system. Name me one. It's hard to find one. Nigeria has one of the lowest tax to GDPs in the world. It's around 6%. I mean, compare that to Norway, which is at the top of that list, 60%. They've got the money to build schools. They've got the money to build roads and hospitals. They've got a system that works. How do you intend to get us a system that works and get Nigeria's tax receipts rolling in?
Well, thank you, Mark. And this is very clear that people are willing to pay taxes when they get value for the taxes that they pay. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why people are not paying taxes right now is that they not only do not believe that their taxes will be wisely or judicially used, but more importantly, because they have seen the wastage and the corruption that is in the system. Of course, there is also no penalties for tax evasion, as we have seen mostly by those who are the wealthy of this nation. So the four things that we're going to do to be able to ensure that we create value and that increases the amount of income that people are able to get, and of course the tax system, is to say, number one, we must reduce the cost of governance and completely eradicate the wastage in governance, which means starting from the presidency. There is no reason why the president's convoy should be a 30-car convoy just to go and drop the president at the airport.
So you're not going to have a 30-car convoy?
I will be riding in a bus that will carry other ministers, rather than have every minister's car trail after the president.
That would be a first. That would be a first.
Secondly, we must reform our institutions, especially our civil service institutions, to ensure that they are delivering excellence in service. Meaning that every civil service institution will deliver service in a way that makes the people realize that we are getting value for our taxes. The third most important thing is that we must then boost the economy such that we can grow jobs and grow the earnings of our people. When jobs are created and when businesses are booming, then there will be more taxes, and then our tax to GDP ratio will continue to grow. And then the last of all is that we must reorient our people and get them to understand that paying taxes is not just an obligation, but it is the way for them to create a sustainable way for their children to be able to have a better nation than the one they live in.
Thank you. Now, if my team is standing by, candidates, I want you to please turn your attention to the screens. There are screens there to your left and your right. Now, we've asked young people to send in their questions from the four corners of the country. And this first one comes from a YouTube content creator with 250,000 subscribers. Roll the tape.
Hi, my name is Dimaume. I'm 28. I'm a YouTube creator focused on beauty and lifestyle. The internet has revolutionized the way we communicate and access information. In the recent years, it has also become a means of revenue generation for many young Nigerians like myself. However, many people in this country still have no access to the internet, and for those with access, it is expensive. My question is, how does your administration plan to make the internet more accessible to Nigerians? And how do you plan to regulate telecommunication companies and internet service providers to ensure that consumers are protected?
Kingsley Moghalu, there is talk of this new industrial revolution that is going to be based on a future of digital, of AI, of all sorts of technology that will take us into a brave new world. Nigeria needs to be ready for it. You've seen some people are already working within that. We have young people, in fact, 51% of the people voting at this election are between the ages of 18 and 35. You need their votes. They need jobs. How are you going to create a presidency that fosters the jobs and the environment of the future, the digital future?
Yeah. The focus of my presidency in terms of moving the Nigerian economy away from oil is going to be a focus on innovation. And innovation includes all forms of ICT, which is a big driver of innovation. One of the problems that my administration will solve when it comes to ICT is that you find a heavy concentration of ICT in urban areas, but the rural areas of this country have about 53% of our population, and they are not well served by ICT. We will create incentives for businesses, young tech startups, to move closer to the rural areas and bring more members of our population into the digital age. We are going to create a startup nation that is going to prioritize innovation. And there are many companies that are already doing a great job in Nigeria today. So the point is this, that when I become president, the ICT sector, we're going to focus, first of all, on infrastructure for the ICT sector, broadband coverage for this country. Secondly, we are then going to make sure that the ICT infrastructure moves to the rural areas and brings in one-half of our population that is cut off from the modern civilized world. So we are definitely going to move this, and this is something that is going to be good for job creation for young people in this country. That's where the focus is, to create opportunities for startups, and that's where the venture capital fund comes in, because we will give young people investments, 100,000, 500,000, 1 million.
Where are you finding the money?
For the
Where are you
venture
going to find
capital
the money?
fund, I've said it in several statements. 500 billion of it will come from the private sector. It's a public-private partnership. 500 billion will come from the government. So it's a co-investment. And the fund is going to be run by the private sector. It will not be run by the government and become another empire of sleaze, such as we have seen in the present administration.
Now, when you say that's the present administration, it makes me think they're not here, the PDP and the APC, the two bigger parties. They're absent here. They're not here, Dr. Obi, they're not here to defend themselves. I guess I want to ask you what your thoughts are on that for 30 seconds.
I'm not surprised they're not here. They have just simply announced their exit from the governance. of our country. I think it is important for us to acknowledge that there is a political class that simply needs to fade away from our country. Because the idea that the will of the people will be subordinated to the whims and caprices of our politicians should be a total anomaly. And today, as we in this country focus on the ideas, competitive ideas that would develop our country, if the two dominant parties cared about the Nigerian people, they would come here in order to have a contest of ideas on how we would fix Nigeria. Mark, I must let you know that for the Nigerian people, this is a moment to make a clear judgment as to whether we are connected to the issues that matter to the Nigerian people. We showed up for this debate not because we're new entrants into politics, and I hope I speak for my two colleagues, but because we believe that it is time for a new kind of governance in Nigeria. It is time for the citizens of this country to take complete charge of the destiny of Nigeria. And so we stand before you today, not because we are the best in the country, but because we come with a sense that our country needs to be immediately rescued from the stranglehold of poor governance, bad politics, and governance failure. I represent a mindset where the citizens who occupy the highest office in the land and give legitimacy to politics should become the drivers of the future of this country. And it starts now.
I have to let Fela Dorotoye come in here. Fela, you're here, they're not. What does that say?
Well, it says that the future is here. That's what it says. And that all things have passed away. But I must say something to you, and Mark, and to the people of this nation. Pride always comes before a fall. And every time you believe that you have no need to tell the people what it is that you're going to do, it means that you are not there to serve them in the first case. You were going to rule over them. And we should not be surprised, for this has been consistent over the last 20 years. We have had 20 years of rulership, and rulers do not explain to their subjects what it is that they're going to do. They don't owe it to them. What I think the greatest deceit that we've had to deal with in this nation is that rulers called themselves leaders and make us subjects feel like followers. We are not followers, we are subjects to them. And now it is time to be free. We had had 58 years of independence, but not 58 years of freedom. And now the time has come for us to be free of this bad coin that has two sides that I believe are depicted here. And most importantly, it is time for Nigerians to truly begin to evaluate the things that matter and understand that leadership is about competence, about character. Leadership is truly about people who respect people, people who love the nation, and people who will uphold the law. Now, I believe very strongly that Nigeria has a clear choice to make, and that choice has to be made now. But the evidence of it is here for us to see.
It's getting hot in here. It's getting hot in here. Yeah. Young Progressive Party.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mark. Like my two colleagues, I am not at all surprised that the leaders of the APC and the PDP have decided to turn their back on the people of Nigeria and tell them finally that they never amounted to much in their eyes. Now, the reason they are not here, there are two reasons. One is arrogance. They believe that the people of Nigeria have no voice and no choice. That you will always come back to them. They believe that you cannot move away from them. They believe they've trapped you, they've kept you in bondage. They've kept you in bondage for far too long, and it is now time for us to send them a message. The second reason they are not here is because they cannot answer the questions. Very simple, very straightforward. They belong to the old class of recycled politicians who want to come to power with a sense of entitlement, but not a record of performance. They want to come to power with a sense of money and power, but not a record of service to the people of Nigeria. They cannot answer the intricate questions of the economy, the intricate questions of nation building. They cannot answer even the questions of security that some of them rode to power on as former people in uniform. And yet we see our country far less secure than it has ever been. So it is a record of failure on both sides. The APC and the PDP, one is a kettle, one is a pot. And they call each other black.
Well, I think we need a break now, but when we come back, the candidates will be asked an important question. How do you plan to make Nigeria more secure? Stay with us at the 2019 presidential debate.
Sensitivity is a short pain which occurs when teeth are exposed to hot, cold, or acidic things. Cold water from the fridge would trigger off sensitivity. What I would say to the patient is switch to Sensodyne, make it your daily toothpaste. Over a period of time would reduce tooth sensitivity. And a lot of them come back to thank me, to say that, wow, it's just something so simple. It adds the sparkle back into their life.
Relieve tooth sensitivity with Sensodyne Daily Care 40 milligrams for just 350 naira only.
For Lagos State, Yoruba they say Buhari la fe o. For Lagos State, Igbo people they say Buhari kain chara. Hausa people where the Lagos State they say Buhari mukesa. South people where the Lagos State they shout Buhari we want to. Come on here when the Lagosians they say oh Buhari we want.
People of Lagos don't agree say that only President Muhammadu Buhari go fit continue with the good work wey dey shele for our country for 3 years now. Now the man wey don begin repair our country Nigeria from the bad way it be before when them spoil am with the corruption and thief. People of Lagos State, our country don't better, so it could make we all support and vote Muhammadu Buhari and Professor Yemi Osinbajo as Vice President. So if it continue and finish the good work what they do for we country, so now forward ever and backward never. Vote APC.
Buhari we want to.
Now a couple support group power this message.
Bamidele Alabi Adegbite Oba Oshao, concerning the construction of Jeba Eyen-Kwarin Road, which was abandoned for so many years that the road was not passable before. Almost 5 hours before getting to Jeba from Shao here, when the road was not constructed. But now, within 45 minutes, I can get to Jeba.
My name is Alhaji Abdul Qadir Alabi Adibara, the Oba of Jeba. We people living here, we have to thank federal government for job down to repair the road, which made it easier for us to travel from Jeba to Ilorin and back.
For Lagos State, Yoruba they say Buhari la fe o. For Lagos State, Igbo people they say Buhari kain chara. Hausa people where the Lagos State they say Buhari mukesa. South people where the Lagos State they shout Buhari we want to. Come on here when the Lagosians they say oh Buhari we want.
People of Lagos don't agree say that only President President Muhammadu Buhari go fit continue with the good work wey dey shele for our country for 3 years now. Na the man wey don begin repair our country Nigeria from the bad way e be before when dem spoil am with the corruption and thief. People of Lagos State, our country don better, so e good make we all support and vote Muhammadu Buhari and Professor Yemi Osinbajo as Vice President, so e fit continue and finish the good work wey e dey do for we country. So now forward ever and backward never. Vote APC. Now a couple support group power this message.
Debate. We're on all. Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. We're on all major social media platforms, and look out for the hashtag 2019 debate. Now, open up your newspaper, switch on your TV, open up your laptop, and every week there seems to be a story about security, or should I say insecurity, in Nigeria. We're all familiar with the issues. Boko Haram creating havoc in the northeast. In the middle of the country, herders versus farmers vying for grass and water has led to bloody results. Now, we've seen kidnappings and cultism in some parts of the country, and then there's the agitation of some separatists in the east. Candidates now, as president, you'll be expected to do a lot to improve security. I'm going to go to my left again for 2 minutes to the candidate for the YPP. Now, as a result of the various insecurity in Nigeria that I mentioned, the Global Terrorism Index ranks Nigeria number 3, and Boko Haram is one of the reasons for that high ranking. What will your administration do to eradicate and reduce violent extremism in Nigeria?
The first thing we're going to do is that we will bring to the problem the political will to address it once and for all. The second thing we're going to do is to tackle corruption in the military. The recent report of the International Security Studies Association has told us very clearly that one of the reasons and one of the factors that is driving the insurgency is corruption in the Nigerian military. And this has led to Boko Haram technically degrading our military instead of the other way around. We will bring to the problem intelligence. Intelligent intelligence. How do we do that? We will go to the people and try to win their hearts and minds and ask them to collaborate with the government, the military, the security agencies. Give us intelligence. We will work with neighboring countries to improve the cross-border intelligence sharing, because it is the failure of that is driving Boko Haram. We will also create the economic opportunity. The economic opportunity that is feeding insurgency and terrorism in Nigeria. The lack of economic opportunity in the Northeast. Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world today, and the Northeast is the poverty capital of Nigeria. We must do something about it, and my government is going to do that. Finally, I want to say, and many people may not know, that one of the things that is feeding corruption in the military in fighting Boko Haram, many years ago, the Nigerian government entered into agreements with various countries for the production and supply of military hardware. Today, this country has bypassed those agreements and has begun and has for years been using private agents to procure military hardware. Military hardware of doubtful quality, military hardware of doubtful viability. And this is one of the reasons that our soldiers are not well equipped in the battlefield. My government will put a stop to the corruption in the military.
Felado Otoye, Alliance for New Nigeria, what are you going to do on security?
Well, first and foremost, we must ensure that the institutions, the security agencies, are strengthened. And to strengthen those institutions, they must be properly led. Which means that you have to make sure, and we will ensure that the leadership of the police and the civil defense corps, the leadership of the army, the navy, and all of the armed forces are based not on nepotism, not on friend or man no man, as we say sometimes in Nigeria. It will be based on performance, and the brightest and the best will be selected amongst the people and promoted to lead the rest so that they can provide for them role model leadership. The second and the most important thing is that we must also make sure that our forces are motivated. And nothing demotivates the military or any of the security forces more than not having the proper equipment to be able to do the work that they have been trained to do. The third is that we must train our people. And of course, we must also enhance their morale by making sure that we treat them well while they're alive, and even should they fall in the course and the service of their nation, that they see how we treat, or those who are alive see how we treat those who have fallen. And most importantly, we must ensure that security and intelligence must be integrated in a way with the communities so that the communities feel a sense of ownership of the security and understand that they must work together to provide that information to the security agencies. Most importantly, and I think this is the last, we must work on what we call the ideology. The ideology that is currently feeding the insurgency must be tackled and addressed before it is that they get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Fela Dorotoye of the ANN. Now I move to your left, to your fellow candidate of the ACPN. What, Madam, are you going to do differently from what you heard your fellow candidates do on security so that we can sleep easier at night?
So number one is to send a very sharp signal that there is a new sheriff in town. Today, those who commit savagery know that there is no consequence. And whenever there is no consequence to criminality, it mushrooms. There is huge supply of bad behavior, savagery in our country because there has not been any judicial process that has led to the conviction of anyone that has killed a fellow Nigerian. Number two, we would set up instantly a SWAT team made up of the best quality brains that we can find, because we must rapidly respond to what currently exists. We want that SWAT team to make it clear that our territory will not be a conducive environment to live in and attack our country and people. Number three, the accumulation of intelligence is going to be based on the knowledge that with technology, there is now the possibility to get intelligence at a lower cost than used to be the case. And so global collaboration in that process, as well as continental collaboration, will drive our low-cost approach at intelligence gathering. Number four is that we will find all those brilliant people in our security sector as part of a security sector, major security sector reform. In finding them, we will reverse the current situation where it is injurious to an officer to be intelligent. We will find the intelligent ones and we will keep them in the place of leadership. And number five, we will broaden security to human security. With economic opportunities, people stop listening to wrong ideologies. Thank you very much.
Now, I'll go on to other questions. I've got a video for you in a moment, but I won't play it now. I'll turn to Fela Dorotoye first, candidate for the ANN. Now, Nigeria is big. There's 1,400 illegal border routes across our massive borders. No, we don't have Donald Trump's wall, let's just say. Yes, that's according to the Immigration Service. We have very few physical barriers, and that can't stop dissidents from infiltrating our beloved country and threatening our safety and security. As President, Fela, what would you do to secure our borders?
Well, there are three things that we will do to secure our borders. The first is that we will invest in technology, especially drone technology, that allows us to be able to have oversight view of the things that are going on across our borders. Because we, like you said, we cannot build a wall right now across 1,400 kilometers, which are the length of our borders today. So the first is that we must be able to do that. The second is that we must strengthen we must strengthen our border control forces and ensure that they have the motor vehicles and the equipment that they require to be able to make and ensure that they catch the people who try to cross, and when they do cross, that we also have the technology that will identify whether they're truly Nigerians or not. So we have to invest in infrastructure. We have to invest in the technological infrastructure that will help us to secure our borders well. Lastly, we must ensure that when people do cross across the borders, that they are, in a sense, repatriated by the people in the communities that they cross across. This means very simply that today, if you come into one of the border towns, the people do not feel like there's any need for them to be able to report that person who has crossed illegally. We must ensure that that is something that the people buy into. So we are going to invest in technology, equipment. We're going to invest in ensuring that our customs and border immigration and customs are strengthened. We're going to also make sure that they do have the motor vehicles, they have all the equipment they need. And lastly, we're going to work with the communities at the border to make sure that they report and they, in a sense, repatriate those guys by themselves.
Thank you. I'll turn now to the left, to the YPP candidate. We've talked about insecurity in the Northeast and also in the Middle Belt that was mentioned, but kidnapping is a serious menace engulfing Nigeria with terrible results that are destroying lives and families. I even read a story recently about a tenant that kidnapped their landlord and used the ransom to pay the rent. Can you imagine? Yes? It's ludicrous and it's dangerous. What would you do to discourage some Nigerian youths from taking up this dangerous profession?
Well, thank you for the question. It's amusing, but it's a very serious issue. Because we know that many Nigerians have used kidnapping as extortion. That's quite clear from the stories we've heard. I have talked about the breakdown of national security in this country. And the first place to begin is with the police force. Nigeria does not have a police force in any reality that is close to anything we know in the civilized world. So my government will invest heavily in creating a 21st century police force. We will recruit, we will equip, we will train with specialization, because in today's police, any police officer can do anything. Some are in the administrative card, some tomorrow they're in the traffic, waiting you carry your guy. There are all kinds of things. There's no specialization. So we will make sure that we build a 21st century police force, and the equipment is important for kidnapping, because even now, they do try to trace kidnappers, but they don't try enough, because the whole police is just not properly organized. So we need a modern police force to bring kidnapping down. We have 175 policemen today to 100,000 Nigerians. That's very low. The United Nations requirement is 300 policemen to 100,000 citizens. Some will argue 400 policemen to 100,000 citizens. And in Nigeria, where we have such a huge security issue, both internally, at our borders, and with terrorism, there is no more important investment than investing in the security of our lives and our property with a police force that can check kidnapping like any modern police force anywhere in the world.
Thank you very much for that intervention. Now, I mentioned the youth losing the way. Candidates, please turn your attention to the screens once again on each side of me here. This question is from a law student in Kano. Roll the tape.
My name is Aminat Bakari. I'm 20 years old. Dear aspirants, majorities of youth like me are out there unemployed and starving. Now my question is, what is your plan to operationalize the youth labor policy in order to increase the number of young people that are engaged in the labor world?
Very important but simple question. We've got a population of 200 million people and growing, and Nigeria has an alarming rate of unemployed youths that will become a security threat to Nigeria. As they say, devil finds work for idle hands to do. Highlight some of the things that could help someone like that who says, what can you do in the education field to avoid people falling into all this? I'll go to the candidate from ACPN for this first.
It's a very important problem to tackle. and that there's a sense of urgency about it. The latest NBS report on youth unemployment shows that some 29.7% young people are unemployed. Some 25.7% of them are underemployed. So you're talking of 55% of the youthful segment of our society being in a state of lack of opportunity. And it's always about employability and employment opportunity. Employability speaks to the lack of skills that are relevant to the economy. And that requires innovating in education. A key thing that we have as our agenda is get a skill. It targets young people and works with the private sector to be the owners of programs that develop skills in the different sectors that are viable in the economy. It also focuses on, a second focus is, of course, the curriculum, even in the tertiary and secondary institutions, to make them dynamic and targeted toward employability. We also focus on teacher quality issues. If teachers do not have the skills to train the right kind of people, they would train people that the employment market would reject. On employment opportunities, we must grow the economy beyond 1.8%. It requires massive deregulation and opening up of sectors that are currently closed to the private sector. It also requires a focus on small businesses because in other societies, they make up as much as 75% of the job opportunities. The way out for our youth is jobs, jobs, and more jobs.
Jobs, jobs, and more jobs, says the candidate from the ACPN. Candidate for the ANN, that law student in Kano there was specifically talking about policies for labor as well. What policies would you put in, labor policies, that would improve the lot for youths in the future when it comes to employment?
Okay. Thank you, Mark, and thank you everyone that's listening. First thing I would like to say is that today our current educational system is preparing our youth for certification, not for occupation, which means that most of the skills and mindset, the value system that is required to succeed in the marketplace and in the professional world are not even being taught in school. So I'll give you a very practical example. Today, if you want to get a job in a bank, even after passing the aptitude test, the banks are going to ensure that you go through about 10 weeks of training just to get you ready to be integrated into the banking system within their organization. The question is, why would you have to take a graduate of banking and finance who has spent 4 years in school and retrain that person for 10 weeks just to be able to make that person ready? Because throughout their 4 years in school, they were being prepared for a certificate, not for a job in a bank. What we want to do, and we will do and deliver, is to make sure that we get the users of what I call the private sector and the market, will get them involved in curriculum development, so that it is the banks that will determine what it is that you learn in school, so that by the time you're done in school, you are ready and fit for employment. This is the first and most important thing that we have to do to get that integration going. The second most important thing is we have to give the right values. And today, leadership, the values of excellence, work ethics are not being taught in school. And yet, people are hired for their technical competencies and fired for their behavioral deficiencies. And so they need to be prepared in terms of values. So we will integrate values deeply into the curriculum of our economy, of our schools, and that is how we're going to make sure that the students are ready for the labor market.
Thank you very much. Now, we're going to talk about education in the next section, so I'm going to hold off on asking you to react to that video, candidate of the YPP, and actually go to a specific challenge we have, which I mentioned in my intro, and that is when you lay your hand on the Bible, if you lay your hand on the Bible or the Quran, and you're swearing to uphold the indivisibility and territorial integrity of our nation. It's a #1 priority for you if you do become the president. Now, considering the agitation in the East, where you're from, with a breakaway republic of Biafra. This has got everyone's head scratching. What would you do to deal with that situation? For example, would you call for a referendum?
The first thing that the YPP presidency will do is to make every Nigerian feel a Nigerian. The reason you have agitations and marginalizations is because some people in this country do not feel that they belong, and they have good reason to feel that they don't belong. Let's not pretend about it. Look at the divisive leadership we have in Nigeria today. Almost 99% of the heads of the security agencies of this country come from one part of the country and one religion. Why would people in some other parts not feel that, well, if you don't think we're somebody, well, maybe we should go somewhere else? So let's address problems at their root. I began by saying that my presidency will be foundational. And the way to address this is two things. One, a constitutional restructuring of the Federal Republic of Nigeria so that different parts of this country can develop at their own pace, and we are all not choked by Abuja-centric politics. The second thing that we must do, and when I become president, this is what will happen, is that we will practice inclusive governance, but based on merit. No part of Nigeria in my presidency will complain about marginalization, because everybody in Sokoto, in Ibadan, in Nnewi, in Benue will see themselves represented in my government by their best, not by their worst.
Thank you from the YPP candidate there. Stay with us as we take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be drilling down and we'll be asking the candidates solutions for education and healthcare. This is the 2019 presidential debates.
I go really early, oh, I know your story. I go Yaba to buy material. I go time my daily, yeah, and I go not say I don't. If you see my daily, oh, it go on everybody. Let me go to yellow. Let me go to yellow. Let me go to yellow.
3G is great, 4G is better. You don't know what you're missing till you experience it. Upgrade to a 4G device and SIM, SMS GET to 141 to enjoy double data on Nigeria's widest 4G network.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Nigeria Choices 2019.
Election is here again, oh. So what do you need to vote? If you're registered like me, all you need to do is show up at your polling unit.
Forgetting something?
Okay, your phone. For an I don't vote selfie.
And what again?
A friend to gist with, some guguru and a deep sense of national duty and pride. What am I forgetting?
Your PVC, Mr. Expert.
Millions of people have not collected their permanent voters card yet and won't be allowed to vote without it, even though they already registered.
Collect your PVC today. PVC no dey easy to collect sometimes, but PVC be like chicken pox. Once collected, and that's all.
To find out more, visit votenotfight.org or call 0800-1000-500. Make the right choice for Nigeria.
My name na Chichi, and my husband, they call me Chi Baby. Now, why I dey use Erisco tomato paste, wey be 100% natural tomato they cook? You go come hear my husband, they call me Asam Pete.
Now, me be told you, Jare, my canteen no get rival for Ibadan. My customers know they take my food to joke, yo. Hey, them don't confirm, I'm say, read Jiko 100% natural tomato paste. They make food sweet, not be small. That now why my customers, they call me Olowo Shibi. Name na like me, my family, they happy anytime food already. Because they know say na Jiko 100% natural tomato paste good for body. That now why allergy they call me Yarinyana. Wallahi, na son kifa.
Erisco Rijiko and Najiko tomato paste now made in Nigeria by Erisco Foods Limited. Then day for market for inside tin and sachet.
Life evolves. You should too. 3G is great. 4G is better. Buy an Airtel SIM to enjoy double data on Nigeria's widest 4G network.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. The next segment will be divided into two topics, education and health, very important topics. And this time, let's turn this around a little bit, and I'm going to go right to left. I'm going to be radical and start with the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, because you indeed were an education minister in a previous administration here in Nigeria, and you're still an educator and passionate about it. Now, you've been quoted on this campaign as promising that education will become our new oil and our new gold. That's direct, that's what you said. Easily said, very difficult to do. Would you agree that Nigeria's booming population needs better education? And if so, what are your policies for delivering on that promise?
Education has always been known as the pathway to human progress. Economic and social mobility is possible through education. That's why the child of the poor can quickly rise up to middle class, upper middle class, and upper class, as the case may be. Education is the basis of provision of opportunities for people. And so one of the things we've learned is that early child care education is now paramount for giving people a leg up. In today's Nigeria, more than 65% of the children of the poor do not have that kind of access. We will commence in the change to education by ensuring that foundationally, the early child care education is integrated very well. We worked on that policy when I was Minister of Education into what we offer the Nigerian people. Second part of it is that the basic education, secondary education, and tertiary education all require comprehensive reforms. The key reforms would be curricular around the 3 steps. But we would also focus on technical and innovation education, for which we put a certification arrangement within the Nigerian educational diploma and degrees. And number 3 is that teacher quality is at the heart of how effective the education system becomes. Some reasonable number of our teachers are okay, but majority of our teachers, numbering more than perhaps 50%, still have just a TC2 and are in the classroom. We must modernize teaching. We will take teaching to the prestigious profession that it once was by training the teachers massively and equipping them with the new knowledge of the new economy. in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Fellow Durotoye, the flag bearer for the Alliance for New Nigeria. Now, if you look through history, you'll see that those nations that have risen up to the dizzying heights that they want to get to, I think of Singapore, for example, based it on education, on people as their raw material. Your candidate who wants the same job that you want, to your left there, just said that people are educating our people as the new oil and gas. What do you say? How important is it? And how are you going to do it, more importantly?
Well, permit me to quickly quote the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, when he visited Nigeria in 2001. And he said something that was really significant. He said, in the 21st century, the wealth of nations will not be found under the feet of its people, but will be found between their ears. Meaning that it is really what the knowledge, we're in the knowledge era today, and it is what the people know, intellectual capital, that really turns human resource into human capital. Meaning that the more you learn, the more your capacity to earn. And so it is critical that we are able to ensure that all of our citizens have the best opportunities, not only to be able to get a foundational education, but we're able to ensure that they're able to go as far as they can go in their aspiration to get education for opportunities in the marketplace and to start their own business. So the following things need to be done. Number one, we must ensure that our teachers are people that are committed to the success of the students and not just committed to seeing them pass an exam. They must be committed to the success of the students in life and in the future. So they must ensure that we have the best teachers who are subject experts. Today you'll find one teacher teaching several subjects and being a master of none. We must make sure that we develop specializations and teachers do regular exams to keep in touch with what is going on and what's going on within their field of specialization. The second thing is that we must invest in the infrastructure. The learning environment must be something that is pleasing to anyone who wants to learn. And the last one is that we must center values at the heart of our curriculum. It is extremely important that the way that we think drives the way that we will behave and the results that we will command in the future.
Thank you for that. The Young Progressives Party in power. What are you going to do for education?
Thank you. The YPP has a very, very strong attachment to education, and I happen to be a professor myself, so I have very practical experience in this area. The first thing that our government will do is that we will bring to education the political will to make it the priority, because the progress of Nigeria rises or falls on the strength of our educational system. Today, education is about 7% of our budget. In my presidency, we will begin the first budget of 2020 with not less than 20% of it devoted to education. Now, that's not enough, because you can throw money at problems and it doesn't solve the problem. The budget, 80% of the education budget is on recurrent expenditure, and that is what we're going to move away from. So we will invest in teacher training. We will retrain and recertify Nigeria's teachers at primary school level, at secondary school level especially. We will invest in curriculum reform, moving learning. 60 to 70% of the curriculum will have to move towards technology, vocational skills, and entrepreneurship. Every young man or woman coming out of an educational system in Nigeria must know how to be able to run a business, because that is how the jobs of the future are created. We will reform pedagogy, that is to say how children learn. As a professor, 60% of my class work, in terms of the grading, 60% is based on your original research. And I taught students from over 30 countries, and these are the most powerful countries in the world. So we will invest in how our children learn so that they don't just cram and regurgitate for exams. Then we will invest in educational infrastructure, and finally, I will end ASU strikes in Nigeria.
Now, Take a look again at the screens on the left and the right candidates. You may recognize this bright young girl in the next video. She has 3.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and she has a question on education. Roll the tape.
My name is Emanuela Samuel. I am 8 years old, and I am a YouTube video creator. We all know that education is very important, especially child education. However, the quality of education in our government school is getting poor every day. And that's why parents now put their children in private schools. And we all know that not every child can go to private school because their school fees are very expensive. Now my question is, how will your administration improve teachers' training and improve the quality of education in our government schools so that every child can have access to good education?
An 8-year-old from the mouth of babes there. Not everybody can go to private schools. Not everybody can afford it. And it actually has a tremendous impact and stress on households that has a really big impact. Government versus private. She says government is going downhill. You want to be at the head of government. From the ACPN, what are you going to do to answer her questions?
So I would start by saying that the public schools are the basis of lifting people out of poverty. And since our flagship agenda is to lift 80 million Nigerians out of poverty, the education of the poor in the public school, because they are the ones left behind there, will be paramount for us. And so the first thing is to identify the learning outcomes that are missing in the school system today, and to fix that. To fix learning outcome, it goes to the heart of the quality of the teachers. The quality of the teachers is dependent on the kind of training that teachers get. When I was Minister of Education, we began to work on this and did accelerated program to upgrade the skills of teachers through colleges of education and the Nigerian Teachers Institute. We'll continue. We will also give greater power to the Teachers Regulatory Council to be able to regulate the teaching profession, to bring prestige and dynamism to it. We would also work on the matter of the remuneration of the teaching profession. One of the key things that we would focus on is housing all teachers. Housing all teachers. It's a program that the private sector already indicated significant interest in. Then we would focus on the curriculum issues. One of the major problems with curriculum is how dynamic it changes. And so for public education, it is critical that the private sector involvement enables us to see how critical reasoning and creativity, as well as entrepreneurship, already begin at the level of primary education. We will finally, and I think I will stop there because
thank you very much. Thank you for respecting the time. This is a very passionate subject, and there are voters out there that really want to know. I personally, this will influence my vote. I am a product of the Jakonde school education system in Lagos, Nigeria, in both primary and secondary. And now I'm moderating the 2019 presidential debate. You can be anything, but those schools, those children today in those same schools need support. They need to have the opportunities. As president, what will you do for them?
So let me just once again reaffirm, even as you did, that I also went to a public school. I went to staff school on the University of Ife campus and went to Moremi High School. And this was at a time in our nation's life where things worked, and everyone, regardless of whether you were, rich or poor, public schools worked for all, because that was what the governance was all about, creating opportunities for all. And that is exactly what it is that the Alliance for New Nigeria party-led government is promising. Opportunities for all, to fix education and make sure that we are back to that point where everyone who goes through a public school is able to be prepared enough for success in life. Now, to make sure that this happens, we have to understand, why are people not coming to school? Well, many of them are not coming to school in part because their parents can't even afford the transportation that gets the children to school. And so one of the things that we are doing, and we have as a program, is what we are talking about working with public bus system and ensuring that we have a free transport system for children to schools and from schools back to their bus stops closest to their homes. Secondly, we are also going to ensure that we use the existing systems as best as possible to ensure that after-school programs are going to be strengthened. How much? Are you speaking? No, go ahead. Okay. So we have an after-school program that is going to be strengthened in the evenings to ensure that children who are not able to go to school in the mornings because they do have to probably meet certain needs at home are able to come in the evenings to make sure that that happens. The last one is that we will actually enforce the law in making sure that any parent that keeps their children at home are liable of being arrested.
Arrested. Okay, Wilton, can we move on to health? And I remember that 38 seconds from the first segment. I still have it in my pocket. You can have it now. So
can I comment on education and then health?
Very quickly, okay. And then I want to give you enough time.
Very quickly, when I say that I will be the education president of Nigeria, the YPP is committed, and my government will make secondary school education free in this country. Now, a lot about making our public schools better is about the fact that we are not investing in the public schools. It's what you put in that you get out. So we will invest very heavily in the public school system of this country. I am a product of public school systems. I went to Eziama High School in Aba, Government College Umuahia, and the Federal Government College Enugu, and the University of Nigeria. So I have gone through these schools, and they have also made me what I became. They are worthy of our priority. They are worthy of our investment. And we're going to put public schools back to such a standard that a lot of private schools in this country are going to have to look for a new business model.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you
health.
About health. Now,
yes.
It's all right going to school and getting a good education, but you've got to be healthy first. You've got to be standing on your feet. You've got to have health in order to get education, then wealth. That's Absolutely. The way it works. So let's talk about health here.
Yes.
If you looked at the statistics and where Nigeria stands on many indexes when it comes to health, we don't do well on a lot of them. I think of child mortality, for example. Yes. Health is a big problem when you've got a booming population like ours. As president, what will you do to right that ship?
My government will address the challenge of healthcare, first of all, by focusing on the quality of the healthcare provision in Nigeria. That's one. Two, access to healthcare. We will ensure universal health coverage. We know that the operational Basic Health Services Fund of the National Health Act of 2014 has not yet been kicked in. It hasn't kicked in yet. And so we're going to look at that. How do we fund health outcomes in Nigeria? For one, the budget for health is 3% of our budget. We will move it to 15% in accordance with the Abuja agreement of all African countries. It was done in Abuja here in 2001, I believe. They met and agreed, but our government has never kept to an agreement it signed and which was signed in its capital. So we will be investing a lot. One, we will make sure that each of the 6 geopolitical zones in this country has a world-class hospital. We must save the $1 billion that is lost in this country every year to medical tourism. And that medical tourism begins with some of the people who are not here. Some of them are the biggest medical tourists. 11 billion naira was budgeted for the Aso Rock Clinic over 3 years. That is more than the 6.7 billion that was budgeted for all the teaching hospitals in this country. And yet, in the Aso Rock Clinic, there are no syringes. And how do we know that? From the First Lady, a major user of that clinic. So the government is just not investing in public health. And my government will bring the necessary investments and prioritize as well primary health care.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Madam Mubi. you need to be healthy before you're educated, as I say. You heard a very clear vision for that. What's your vision when it comes to health?
So number one vision is we at least have a start-off point, the National Health Insurance Scheme. We would need to expand access to it. And the universalization would mean that even those who don't yet have work would be able to fall into that program on the basis of some cross-subsidization system that is based on transparent mechanisms of ensuring that people who are without jobs, who are unwell, would not be neglected in our society. Number two would be health practitioners. It is difficult for Nigeria and most of African countries to retain expert health people because the incentives are simply not there. And so we would look into the challenges of keeping our health professionals at home and servicing the needs of our health system. Number three is that we will in fact look at health as a system. You cannot solve one part of it and ignore the other part. And so primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, and tertiary healthcare would operate on the basis of a value chain approach at tackling the challenges of access to health. Number four is that health outcomes have focused often on some of the disease burdens that actually impact our productivity. And so we will begin to connect health and well-being to economic productivity. We would work with the private sector to enlighten that knowledge of the connection between healthy well-being and productivity and incentivize through tax that opportunity for people to be given the best health care possible in the country.
Thank you very much. Okay, the Alliance for New Nigeria, health is wealth for Nigeria. How are you as president going to achieve that?
Well, first of all, we will ensure that we work with the state and the local governments to be able to produce quality primary healthcare services at the places where it matters the most, which is right there in the communities where most of the Nigerians live. And this is very important because about 90% of the cases that eventually come into secondary and tertiary healthcare institutions could have been solved at a point in time when it was a primary healthcare issue. And we're talking about things like, malaria. We're talking about things like cholera. We're talking about things like dysentery and diarrhea. These are things that can easily be solved, first of all, at the primary healthcare center. And of course, you can even take things like high blood pressure, which if we had the equipment at the primary healthcare center, it would have stemmed the possibility of it becoming a stroke, which has to then become something that you refer to the secondary and tertiary healthcare centers. So we've got to strengthen the primary healthcare center, and since that is within the purview of the local government, but everyone in the local government is still a Nigerian, therefore it is my responsibility also, and the responsibility of the federal government, to ensure that every Nigerian is healthy. Second thing that we've got to do is to make sure that everyone above the age of 60 is going to get free healthcare, and everyone below the age of 5 is going to get free healthcare, including pregnant women also. Again, this is very important because these are the people who have served and given of themselves, and in the times when they have to be, there should be a return on their service, then this is one of the things that has to happen. The last thing I'm going to quickly talk about is the fact that we must ensure that we have health practitioners as opposed to medical doctors at the primary healthcare level. Because again, medical doctors are really traveling abroad, and we can train healthcare practitioners within the first 6 months, and most importantly, even youth corpers can be trained to easily diagnose primary healthcare issues that can be easily trained on.
Now, you heard from your fellow candidate that he's going to devote 20% of the budget to education and a significant amount, 15% to healthcare. That's expensive. But he seems to have a plan for that. Even in the UK and countries and America, they struggle with their education budgets. They struggle with their health. It's their biggest headache. As president, if you are set to do all these things and increase the education budget and the health budget, where are you going to find the money?
Okay, well, the first is that we are going to find the money from the savings that we have by reducing the cost and the wastage in government. We're going to find the money also by partnering with the private sector and especially also the alumni of campus, of schools. Most schools today have alumni that are, in fact, what I'll call the alumni economy of most schools are really high net worth individuals who will be willing to give back to the schools and ensure that their schools are well funded if they understood that the glory of their certificate is tied to the performance and the glory of the school now, not just when you were there. Meaning, today, if I graduated from the Obafemi Awolowo University, and today when I go back to the school, sometimes my heart breaks because I'm looking at students in rooms that I slept in Obafemi Awolowo Hall, and a room that I slept in that had 8 people on 4 double bunks now have 16 to 20 people in one room lying their head on mattresses and their bodies on the floor. But this is what's going on. We have to be able to find a way to get the alumni to give back because the glory of the school is reflected in the certificate I carry. So my important and the most important point I'm making is that we have to get the alumni back. 68% of the assets in Ivy League schools in the United States are funded by alumni. So we got to get the alumni to know that whilst the school has given you a head start in life, you must not forget, you must always go back to the school and restore the glory of your school.
Thank you. I will stay with that question and I will move on to the ACPN. We were talking about all these great ideas and I was asking where the money is going to come from.
Yes, I often get worried when budgets are allocated to ideas, and then when you sum up the total percentage that's been allocated, it's way beyond 100%. So I am very careful to not promise allocation to budget on the basis of global recommendations. One key thing that needs to happen with education is that we need to be more structurally balanced. A lot of what the problem is that we currently fund a dysfunctionality. Because education is in a state of dysfunction, a lot of the resources that goes into it does not buy you good outcome. And so we have to be very analytical in identifying what it is that matters the most in order to get learning outcomes. Research has shown us that teacher quality is critical. So even though teacher quality is recurrent cost, it needs to be recurrent cost that gives learning outcomes that are globally competitive. The second thing about finding the money for education is that there are many things about education today that revolve around construction. And the constructions that are done in education are not done on the basis of value for money. There are innovative ways of teaching today that do not require massive buildup of resources. A third thing is that the private sector, understanding that the products of education are important for its productivity, are more and more interested in what goes on in education. And so the partnership between government will support it. And finally, for all other expenditures of government that require private sector capital, government will focus on those while focusing on education as a priority.
Thank you very much. Now can I ask you to focus on the screens again, because when we asked,
Since I allocated budgets and a comment was made, I want to talk about where the money will come from.
30 seconds.
Yes, please. First of all, let me be clear. The YPP is a progressive party. That means that we place the citizen as the sole focus of governance. Therefore, we will prioritize the social infrastructure of this country. One, we will not have a country in which we have poor educational and poor health outcomes while we're spending 1 trillion naira on wasteful petroleum subsidies. That is saving number one. 1 trillion naira a year is a lot of money. Saving number two, I have said it, we will partially privatize the NNPC. Not to my friends, I want to be very clear. Not to my friends.
So no cronyism is what you're saying, no cronyism.
Yes, and it will be, the private sector will own 49%, the government will own 51%. And we will sell it on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And there will be a 10% set aside for the oil-producing communities of the Niger Delta.
Okay.
So I can give you even more savings.
No, please don't. Not right now.
Okay.
Okay. So because when we asked young Nigerians, 51% of the voting public, they are young Nigerians between 18 and 35, to send us videos, we were deluged with so many videos. So I want to roll another one now from one young voter with a crucial question for our candidates. Roll the tape.
I'm Olaoluwa Oluwashola, a one champion and the executive chairperson of the Young Leaders Council. I'm 23 years old and I'm passionate about youth and leadership. And my question to all the presidential aspirants is, what is your plan for the implementation of our national youth policy? How do you plan to integrate Nigerian youth into the decision-making process and make them feel a part of it? Thank you.
Clearly, it was a bit low.
I heard.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that was from a young man talking about youth empowerment. Let me begin with the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Reaction, please.
Our young people constitute a significant part of this country. The economic opportunities that come from their gainful engagement would be significant for accelerating our economic growth. Therefore, if we're going to claim the 21st century on the basis of the fourth industrial revolution, they must participate in the agenda of policies that would encourage that. And so we have said that 50% of our cabinet will be made up of young people. We have also promised that young people will be given not just opportunity in government, but that we would work with private sector to ensure that the kind of trainings and leadership positions that are necessary to ensure that young people are progressively doing better in society will be on the table. The third part of empowering our young people is that we would ensure that they are globally competitive. Their global competitiveness is necessary for us because we can actually earn loads of revenue as a result of the startup opportunities that our young people would have in the field of technology. As far as we are concerned, science, mathematics, and engineering are very important for the new economy. And our young people are the people who already foresee where this country should be going. And therefore, their insight into the design of the policies of dynamic growth of our economy will be absolutely important. We will then review the youth policy and update it so that it is reflective of youths that are important for our economy.
Madam, gentlemen, this is live TV, and live TV has breaks. We're going to take one. When we come back, we'll be discussing stamping out corruption, human rights, and the rule of law on the 2019 presidential debates.
Sensitivity is a short pain which occurs when teeth are exposed to hot, cold, or acidic things. Cold water from the fridge would trigger off sensitivity. What I would say to the patient is switch to Sensodyne, make it your daily toothpaste. Over a period of time would reduce tooth sensitivity. And a lot of them come back to thank me, to say that, wow, it's just something so simple. It adds the sparkle back into their life.
Relieve tooth sensitivity with Sensodyne Daily Care 40 milligrams for just 350 naira only.
It's a new dawn for Lagosians, yet better days are coming. Better days that gives us hope and strength. Jide Sanwo-Olu is determined to keep this hope alive, keeping the smile fun for all Lagosians.
When the desire is for a greater Lagos and good governance that puts the well-being of Lagosians first, the All Progressives Congress, APC, is the party you can trust. Her governorship candidate, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is the man to vote as governor of Lagos State. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, a man on a mission with a vision to take Lagos State to the next level of infrastructural development. Lagos State deserves continuity in efficient service delivery. Vote Babajide Sanwo-Olu as governor of Lagos State. Vote APC. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, ready to serve. This message is powered by ECO Plus Support Group.
Nigeria Choices 2019. In the coming elections, this is the choice you must make.
Between violence and peace, what's it gonna be? Peace. Excellent choice. In Nigeria, every vote counts. In Nigeria, every voice should be heard. In Nigeria, do not let them intimidate you.
It is on us, the fathers, sons, mothers, and daughters, to mobilize against violence, to vote without fear, to promote peaceful and non-violent elections in every corner of our beloved Nigeria.
Visit votenotfight.org for more on your choices as a voter and getting your PVC. Or call 0800-100-0500. Make the right choice for Nigeria.
All the 300 roads where you do for we state. They empower sisters on youth every year. They want free medical for our people. And so provide security for we state. And save on governor of the state. Talking I do it. You debut, even papa, mama, and widows, them they enjoy. Now you will go vote again for governor. To continue all the better things that you don't do. For governor of Delta State,
Vote Okowa. Vote for a stronger Delta. This message is brought to you by Delta State PDP Campaign Organization.
Cubes contains calcium and other essential minerals for growth, healthy bones, and strong teeth. It costs 5 naira per cube and 50 naira for a pack of 10. Erisco milk cubes, made in Nigeria by Erisco Foods Limited.
Sensitivity is a short pain which occurs when teeth are exposed to hot, cold, or acidic things. Cold water from the fridge would trigger off sensitivity. What I would say to the patient is switch to Sensodyne, make it your daily toothpaste. Over a period of time would reduce tooth sensitivity. And a lot of them come back to thank me, to say that, wow, it's just something so simple. It adds the sparkle back into their life.
Relieve tooth sensitivity with Sensodyne Daily Care 40 milligrams for just 350 naira only.
Welcome back to the 2019 presidential debate. We're live on Bond channels across the world and on social media platforms too. Look us up at #2019debate. Now, the candidates have so far laid out their visions for the economy, for security, for education, and healthcare. And we'll end with looking at what they'll do to tackle corruption, strengthen the rule of law, and human rights. Now, I will start from my left with the YPP. Interestingly, your pedigree, your background at the UN was one in truth and reconciliation as a lawyer, being part of that process in Rwanda, of all places. So you've got considerable experience on healing nations. When it comes to being a president, if you do indeed win the presidency, you're going to have to be healer-in-chief to a great degree. In order to heal the divisions of the nation that didn't necessarily just start with this administration, but go way, way back. We talked about some of the security issues that are children of those divisions. Now, remember, there's no healing without justice, and there's no healing without accountability. Absolutely. Yes, and that goes for all concerns. What is going to be your approach, sir?
My presidency will make sure that Nigeria's peace will be established on the basis of equity and justice and accountability. No one is above the law. There are no sacred cows. Every citizen of Nigeria matters. You matter, I matter, we all matter. That's the basis for healing Nigeria. Secondly, fair treatment of every citizen. I talked about inclusive governance. Third, a vision that is uniting, unifying, and powerful, a worldview of transformation on which we can all agree. That is what brought Singapore to where it is. That is what brought Malaysia to where it is. That is how I will take Nigeria to where we're going in the 21st century. Now, I want to talk about Nigeria specifically. I want to give an example with myself. Many people would say I've done rather well in life, but I want to tell you that other than my parents, 3 people gave me very important breaks in life. None of them was from my ethnic group. The first was Mr. Ray Ekbu, who employed me in Newswatch as General Counsel of Newswatch in 1988. He was from Akwa Ibom State. The second person was Professor Bolaji Akinyemi, who wrote a reference for me that enabled me to gain a fellowship and a scholarship of $25,000 at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Massachusetts. None of these 2 people knew me from Adam. The third was Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, the Emir of Kano today, who recommended me to President Umaru Yar'Adua to be Deputy Governor of the Central Bank. He wasn't my cousin, he wasn't my uncle. But based on all this personal experience, why would I look at anyone in Nigeria with prejudice? Why would I look at you and see first that you're Yoruba or Igbo Hausa? First of all, you are a Nigerian.
Thank you very much. Alliance for New Nigeria. It's there right in the title, New Nigeria. How do we make this vision into a reality of a new Nigeria that does not have this level of corruption, that does not, respects the rule of law and human rights? The current government, if it were here, have made this one of their watchwords, a corruption crusade, and they would defend their record on that. What will be your record after 4 years?
First of all, let me start by saying I don't think that they will be able to defend their record, because if they could, they would have been here to do so. And especially a situation where if you're a member of a party, then no matter which sins and you have committed in the past, your sins are forgiven, is not a defensible record. So we cannot say that they will be able to defend anything. Today, corruption or the anti-corruption stance that the government has taken is actually very selective. It's only against the people that are against the party, and they actually use it to threaten those people to join their parties. So we know that in the new Nigeria, it must be easier for you to catch a thief and more difficult for you to steal. Right now, it's the other way around. It is easier to steal and more difficult for you to catch the thief. And so the most important thing we have to do is to strengthen our institutions. Number one, we must make it difficult for people to steal by making sure that the processes are transparent. We automate those processes, and there's very little intervention with anything that is some form of cash transactions, as it were, human cash intervention. The second thing that we must do is that we must make it easier to report when people have found somebody who's either demanded a bribe or has been in any way involved with a corrupt act. The third is that it must be easier for you to prosecute those people, which means that you must strengthen the investigative agencies, ICPC, EFCC, and several others, the police force, to make sure that those agencies are trained, the officers are well trained and equipped to be able to get their prosecution done properly. And the last is that we must make sure that it is easier for you to get judgments against the corrupt people. And this is very important because when people do not, it takes 11 years to get a governor or two governors that have stolen 11 years each. Well, justice delayed is truly, in a way, justice denied for a nation.
Thank you very much. Now, the final comment on this, I'll move to the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. I talked about the pedigree before of the other candidates, and I will say that you've got an interesting history, having launched the Anti-Corruption Coalition, Transparency International, as well as been the face, let's just say, of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. We're talking about corruption, we're talking about human rights, and we're talking about making those things ever more a priority for everyone in the nation. Yes, we know what we need to do. How do we do it?
I think that the first thing that we must do is that as the president of the country, exemplary leadership is important. You signal to the society that a value reorientation, which you would personify, is on the table, and every sector would follow suit. The second thing is you reduce opportunities for corruption. To reduce opportunities for corruption, you do things like structural changes in the economy. So, for example, we saw what happened with the deregulation and liberalization of the telecom sector. It made the corruption in telecom to vanish. Nobody remembers anymore the kind of corruption we saw in Nitel. Part of that preventing opportunities for corruption involves some of the kind of work that I did, reforming the public procurement system through the due process in this country, raised the value for money, and removed the opaqueness in the award of public contracts. The work that we did with NEITI, Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, shone the light on what happens in the opaque petroleum sector. The major aspect of structural change that would be necessary in our country today is the deregulation of the petroleum sector. It would reduce humongously the corruption that exists and reduce the incentive for people to run for office when they have no idea on how to fix the problems of Nigeria. Number three thing you then do is the detection of corruption and the appropriate sanction. It would require extensive collaboration between the executive arm of government and the judiciary so that there would be conclusive prosecution for those who behave badly. When there are consequences, incentives will realign. Good behavior will be rewarded, bad behavior will be punished.
Thank you very much, madam. Now, let's hear the voice of the people one last time, the voice of the young people. This YouTube video comes from a young gender activist based in Lagos.
My name is Abisola Ayeola. I am 33 years old. I am also an ambassador for One.org, which champions the Poverty, Sexist, and Girl Count campaign. The girl child is statistically the most underpowered and vulnerable across all socio-economic groups. What social investment programs does your administration plan to implement that will sufficiently empower the girl child? Thank you.
Kingsley Moghalu.
Yes. The education of the girl child is a matter that is very dear to my heart. And that is one of the reasons why I was the first presidential candidate since 1999 that I know of to choose a female vice presidential running mate, a young woman of 37 years who has been a strong voice for the girl child in the northern part of this country. So we will invest in our girl children. We will give them good education. Access to education is the first thing that will empower the girl child. That is why education must be free, and certainly for women in this country. Secondly, we will make sure that young women have access to finance. We will make sure that young women are protected in their marriages, and we will work against early marriages in any part of this country. We don't want the future of our young girls being stolen by old men who don't want to respect international human rights standards.
Thank you very much. Now, Alliance for New Nigeria, strong words there. What are you going to do for the girl child?
Well, the first thing that we will do is to ensure that every girl child has the opportunity to attain schools and access education in Nigeria, and make sure that every person who essentially has a child at home, especially a girl child, is encouraged to make sure that they get an education. The second thing, and it's very interesting with Dr. Mogalu, today I'm also a presidential candidate that is running alongside with a beautiful and delectable lady by the name of Hajia Abdullahi Iya, Khadija Abdullahi Iya, and she is someone who also has done a lot of work to ensure that girl child education has been at the forefront of a campaign. So we will ensure that we make girl education and female schools, especially primary schools and secondary schools, very, very, very important. We will fund them. And most importantly, in the north, we will secure them as well. Because today, we've seen what has happened in Chibok and several of the other parts of Nigeria, where girls' schools are actually being attacked, especially because there's with the terrorists and Boko Haram, and they're essentially trying to put fear into the heart of the girls and their parents to make sure that those girls do not go to school. We will ensure that the girls in schools are safe and they're well catered for, and we will take care of them.
Thank you very much. Madam, candidate for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria, you were the co-founder and face of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. What is your campaign to bring up our girls, all our girls?
As Minister of Education, we found the disparity between boys in school and girls in school heartbreaking, especially in the northern part of this country. That is why it was particularly painful for me to see that girls who went to school in Chibok and subsequently Dapchi were taken away from their school. One thing we know that research says to us is that a nation that educates the girl child has a higher track to progress and development. Therefore, getting girls in school must be priority for every country, especially one like ours struggling with development. The number one thing that matters for girls in school is to give an incentive to the families to send girls to school, because barriers that keep girls away from school are social, they are cultural, they are economic, and each of those have policy solutions to tackle them. We will use those tools. The second thing is to give incentive for the girls to want to go to school. And part of the way to do that is role modeling. And so female teachers go a long way at making girls want to achieve more. We would do that. We would also focus on the productivity of the parents of girls, because we have found that when women are economically empowered, they spend 70% of their income on the education of their children. At that point, they stop discriminating between the boys and the girls, and that's important. The fourth thing that we would like to do is to show to the Nigerian people that economic empowerment of women is simply smart economics. It enables the entire society to benefit. It is not the girl child that benefits from access to education. It is actually the community, the family, and the nation state.
Thank you for that. Now, we've come to that time where I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone really one last time, and that's for your final statement. The whole world is watching. Nigerians are watching. You have 1 minute, sir, the Young Progressives Party, to give your final statement.
Thank you. The APC and the PDP over the past 20 years have brought our country to a sorry pass. It is time for something new, something different, something bold. That something new, different, and bold is represented by the Young Progressive Party and my candidacy, and me, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, as the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The future will be shaped by Google and Alphabet. The future will be shaped by artificial intelligence. The future will not be shaped by old and recycled politicians whose worldviews have been shaped by military adventures and ethnic massacres of 1966. The future will not be shaped by recycled politicians who have cornered our commonwealth and laundered this as entrepreneurship. The future will not be shaped by the sound and fury of activism. It will not be shaped even by well-intentioned but inexperienced Nigerians. The presidency of Nigeria is a very serious responsibility. I am ready, and it is time. Thank you. Vote for YPP.
Thank you. The Alliance for New Nigeria, Fela Dorotoye, 1 minute to give your final statement.
Well, my brothers and sisters, every 20 years, something happens in this nation that gives us an opportunity to be able to reset what is going on in governance, and power shifts from the hands of the so-called powerful into a fresh hands that are ready to shape the future. It happened in December 12, 1959. 20 years later was 1979. Again, power shifted from the hand of the military into the hand of civilians. 20 years later was 1999. Again, another general election. And power shifted from the hands of the military into what I call the hands of the military in civilian clothes. 20 years from 1999 is 2019. And once again, power will shift. And the question is, where does it go? And it has to go into the hands of the people who have not had any shackles with the political past, who have a new future and a fresh future to offer this nation.
Thank you for that statement. Thank you for that statement. I'll go to the final 1 minute statement. This one from Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, the flag bearer for the Allied Congress Party of Nigeria. Madam.
You have had a lot of words tonight, but there's one thing I want you to take away with you. It is that this is a historical moment. This is your moment. The citizens of this country can shape a new direction for our country. I have spoken to you not as one who is theorizing about how to do the development of our country. I've spoken to you as one who cares. What our polity is in need of is the leader that truly cares, that has the competence, that also is capable of solving our problems. I can assure you that my running for president is not so that I will be called Madam President. It is simply so that we will mobilize ourselves and begin the urgent rescue of our nation. I want you to know that it is possible and it will be done when you agree. Make sure that the 16th of February, you use your vote well.
Thank you. Can I now ask the candidates to come forward to receive applause for what was a spirited presidential debate? Come and step forward together here, please. On the line. Thank you. Now I'll call upon Timmy Dakolo to sing his hit, Great Nation. And as we are all Nigerians here, in a show of unity, I will ask you to hold hands.
I don't know about you. This country needs fixing. And it is the only place that we can truly call home. Here we stand as a people with one song, with one voice, We're a nation undivided and poised. We will take a stand and build our land in faith to defend what is ours. See, here we are as a people with one heart for one cause. We're determined to rebuild and restore. Where freedom reigns and through prevails our land, where there's hope for us all. Say our land, where there's hope for you and I. We'll defend our land. We believe in this nation, and we know we'll get there. We're all we have. We'll defend our land. We believe in Nigeria and the promise she holds, and that one day we'll shine like the sun. We're a great nation. See, though we are many people, different tribes, and different tongues, we're united in our strength and resolve to uphold the honor of our land and for generations to come. Say, and for yet our children unborn. We are all we have. We'll defend our land. We believe in this nation, and we know we'll get there. We're all we have. We'll defend our land. We believe in Nigeria and the promise she holds, and that one day we'll shine like the sun. We're a great nation. From Bayelsa to Kano, from Benin to Owerri, from Damaturu to Port Harcourt, we are Nigerians, and I believe in one Nigeria. So we'll defend. We believe in this nation, and we know we'll get. So help us, God. We all we have. We'll defend our land.
gentlemen, Timi Dakolo, Great Nation! Now, without much ado, I will ask the candidates to please remain on the stage. We have something extra in the program, and that is to do some presentations. It's not easy to do a 2019 presidential debate. A lot of people spend a lot of time and put in a lot of sweat equity to make this happen, and we want to show them our appreciation. First up, I will call on the acting chairman of BON, Godfrey Ohahunwa, please, if I'm reading that correctly, for the presentation. And I think who's going to give the presentation to him? Is he on his way? You are going to give it. Okay. Maybe I should give you the microphone.
Thank you very much. I want to let you know that John Bomo has just left as the chairman of BON, and I'm just the newest chairman of BON for Nigeria. And on behalf of all the good Nigerians, donor agency, Nigerian Union of Journalists, all the group, and the members of the Broadcast Association of Nigeria, we are very proud of you. On behalf of them, I want to give this certificate of performance, of participation, to you, Sister Obi Ezekwesili of ACPN. And on the same note, I would like to, on behalf of the organizers of this debate, all our sponsors, partners, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUJ, the Nigerian Election Debate Group, I would like to give this certificate of participation to you, Mr. Fela Durotoye of ANN. And on behalf of the Nigerian Election Debate Group, the members of Broadcasting Association of Nigeria, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and all our donor agencies and partners and Nigerians, I would like to give this certificate of participation to you, Kingsley Mogalo of YPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'd also like to recognize Eddie Emesiri, Kingsley Oranta, Dr. Akiode, Samson Itodo, and Clement Wankwo. Please also give them a round of applause. And of course, John Momo. Now, maybe we can take up, have you got your photos, photographers? The snappers have got the photos. Well, we are standing, and let me ask everybody in this hall now to stand. We heard that wonderful rendition of Great Nation, and I think we're inviting now back Timi Dakolo to give us the national anthem at this stage. Timi. We're asking for the second stanza, Timi. Ladies and gentlemen, returning the one, the only, you can just do the first stanza, my friend, it's strong enough. Ladies and gentlemen, Timi Dakolo to give us the national anthem of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Arise, O compatriot, Nigeria's call, obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of the 2019 presidential debate. Now, there is a post-debate show, so make sure you catch that live on TV. But from all of us here in Abuja, thank you for watching and good night.
Ibrahim, we're back.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's been a wonderful time spent here. And we've had all the speakers. It was interesting. Ijoma, I was writing furiously trying to take down some of these points, and I simply can't get down all of them. But then we'll be getting to that point where we'll be discussing the issues that were raised. However, something was pretty obvious here.
That the two candidates, the most prominent candidates in this 2019 election did not come. But the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, earlier on he was here, he was at the premises. We saw some pictures and videos of him. But unfortunately, he decided not to return, to come join the debate. And we may just have to see the video, how he left the scene. If it is available, we may just have to see the video.
If we have that video, it would be nice to see the video of the PDP presidential candidate who was here earlier on.
But we do not know what he is saying there now to let us know.
We probably don't have the audio now, but then it was pretty obvious that he came, and at a point he was actually mic'd to be part of the program. But obviously he left after some time giving explanations. Like you know, there are statements already that have come up from
both sides,
the PDP
and the APC too. They came up with a statement. Atiku himself sent this one. He said, why I did not participate in the presidential debate. He said, we came here for a presidential debate, not a candidacy debate. And I, Atiku Abubakar, cannot challenge or question an administration where the man at the hands of the affairs of the nation is not present to defend himself or its policies. And after all, you cannot shave a man's head in his absence. That's quoting him, one of the things he said. And secondly, say, with all due respect to my fellow candidates, Feladuro Toye, Obi Ezekwesili, Kingsley Moralu, and to the moderator, Mark Sugar, he said, I apologize to all Nigerians here and at home expecting an interesting debate. I regret that I will not be able to go on with this debate due to President Muhammadu Buhari's absence.
Well, interestingly, the APC has also released a statement, one signed by Mr. Festus Keyamo, who is the Director of Strategic Communication of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. There was a statement in which they are saying, advancing reasons why President Muhammadu Buhari could not be at this event. The first reason they are giving, Ijoma, is that they are saying that the president had attended another forum only last Wednesday where he spoke and answered questions, according to them, that are uncensored, and that program was also transmitted live. The second reason is that this particular debate, coincided with his program of campaign. He was in Plateau State today, and he was in Niger State, and so couldn't have been here. And finally, they actually took a swipe at the PDP presidential candidate and said that he ran away, that he shouldn't have. That's what they're saying.
Anyway, that has been a talk in the social media. If you go to the social media, maybe we'll just have to join Taiwo to tell us what Nigerians are saying concerning the absence of the two main candidates for this debate.
Thank you, guys. It's actually been very interesting. In the last 1 hour, what we've seen has been an upsurge of questions from Nigerians about all the candidates. As you would see, this is in the last 1 hour. This wouldn't make much sense until you compare it to what it was a week ago. You would see that it's just at the end that now Nigerians are beginning to ask questions about the main candidates. However, it should be said, the majority of the questions that have come in as a result from Google Trends have been related more to the absence of the current president and the former vice president. So these have taken the attention off the main issues of today's debate.
19. A man offered me money to buy my clothes.
Collect the money and spoil yourself.
It made me think of my parents.
My son, though I might be poor, I will never sell your future.
Open your It's okay.
Keep your money, Oga. I might not have money in my pocket, but I have my future in my hands. And that's all that matters.
To find out more, visit votenotfight.org for more on your choices as a voter and getting your PVC. Or call 0800 100 0500. Make the right choice for Nigeria.
Sensitivity is a short pain which occurs when teeth are exposed to hot, cold, or acidic things. Cold water from the fridge would trigger off sensitivity. What I would say to the patient is switch to Sensodyne, make it your daily toothpaste. Over a period of time would reduce tooth sensitivity. And a lot of them come back to thank me, to say that, wow, it's just something so simple. It adds the sparkle back into their life.
Relieve tooth sensitivity with Sensodyne Daily Care 40 milligrams for just 350 naira only.
Our city one better, Lagos State one better. Our city one better, Lagos State one better. Who go do one for us? Someone who go do one for us. Someone a better Lagos State. Next level call. Now you we want to. Now you we need
Okay now, APC government don't they share better things where they make life better for Lagosians. From the time of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, Babatunde Fashola, and the Boku Wako, where Governor Akinwumi and Bode the Brekete everywhere for Lagos. The people of Lagos don't ready to vote to Babajide Sanwo-Olu as the next governor of Lagos State. So if it continue the good work, Babajide Sanwo-Olu na correct action man and go fit to take Lagos to the next level. People of Lagos, no get time for try your luck. Na APC party we all trust. Make we all come out on election day and vote to Babajide Sanwo-Olu as governor of Lagos State.
Now you want to someone.
Na a co-plus support group power this message.
Najico. Najico Gary Mix. Najico Gary. 3-in-1 Gary Mix. Najico Gary. This one na correct Gary Mix. Najico Gary. Don't make your body happy. Najico Gary. Sugar day inside a Najico Gary. Milky food inside a Najico Gary. Oh yeah, mama.
Najico Gary dey for inside 3-in-1 sachet wey be the original Ijebu Gary with milk and sugar. E dey for small cubes dem wey you fit dey chocolate everywhere you dey. And na 15 naira only. Whether you be farmer, bricklayer or office worker, Najico Gary na the correct wakis for you. E follow come for 4-in-1 pack wey get milk, sugar, groundnut or chocolate inside. Na Erisco Foods be the first to make am. E full everywhere for Nigeria and e dey very affordable. Najico Gary, made in Nigeria by Erisco Foods Limited.
Points for weeks to come, build up to the elections.
Okay, and hopefully a lot of things to discuss, restructuring the education sector and all that. But we will have to watch the polity to see how this will pan out, especially now that we're moving towards the election. It's another opportunity for Nigerians to also witness another debate, 2023.
Well, it's time we go, and I would like to say a very big thank you to the crew who've been wonderful here, and indeed to everyone who has contributed into this program, especially the NEDG and the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. My name is Ibrahim Adra.
I am Ijoma Osamo. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you too.
Bye for now.